Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show and our usual Monday night roundup, looking at the region's action and talking points over the course of the last week or so. Of course, with only one place to start, and that is with just touching on and paying tribute to the late Terry Yorath, who passed away during the week, of course, who was one man and probably one of few men, really, that unites all of the Football League sides across our region, Leeds, Huddersfield and Bradford, in different roles over the years. I'm Chris Bell. Tonight, I'm joined by Gareth Walker and Lewis Sale, and also joining us from BBC Radio Leeds, the Bradford City commentator and reporter, Jamie Rayner. First things first, thanks for joining us, everyone. How are we all doing?
Yeah, super, mate.
You?
Yeah, all good. Gaz, I just want to come to you just to start with on Terry Yorath, because with the greatest of respect, you're the oldest and might stand more of a chance of remembering him in some capacity, to be honest, mate.
Yeah, he's still even a little bit before my time, I'm afraid. I think he was joined as a player in the early 80s and obviously was assistant manager under Trevor Cherry for the 85 season. I have a lot of friends who speak of that season as possibly their favourite season following City, which is obviously up until the fateful day. That is obviously a very big thing to say based on the successes that we've had in seasons since. Terry Yorath, great servant. I believe he was there on the fateful day in 85. His family were there. Gabby Yorath obviously there as a little girl. So he plays a big part in Bradford City history. Came back later on his career as the actual manager. In I think it was 89 he came back. So he had two spells at City. He's been a player, an assistant manager, and a coach, and a manager at City. So it means a lot to Bradford City and the community as a whole. And I believe he was a really nice guy as well. And lots of people speak very highly of him. So sad loss.
Yeah, and somebody as well worked as a coach under Peter Jackson, I think at both Bradford and at Huddersfield. And Jamie, is he someone that you ever came across in your kind of journalistic career?
Very, very briefly, I crossed paths with him at last year's now commemorative dinner at Valley Parade, Champions the Reunion, I think it was called, which was to mark the 40th anniversary of the title winning squad. That event was to get everybody together that was part of that team, because as what was said on the evening, naturally the overriding takeaway from that season tragically is what happened on that fateful day, but it was to commemorate and celebrate what that group did on the field, and to see that group still have the admiration and respect for Terry Yorath was very, very clear. So as I was saying to Stuart McCall last week, I felt very privileged that I was able to have that moment and to see them all together, because you can see how much he meant to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's start off then with Bradford City this evening. And of course, Gaz, it's a strange one to start with Bradford, I guess, because you were in action. It was a postponed game at the weekend. We'll touch on whether that was a good thing or a bad thing in due course. The big news, of course, today is the departure of one Andy Cook. The club announced it this afternoon across the social media accounts that Andy Cook has gone out on loan. Now, this has been a conversation in our group chat most of the afternoon in terms of the way that they've kind of announced it, in terms of it's a very heartfelt and emotional, I think, way of kind of announcing. But also, from my perspective, I looked at this and thought, it's also a really odd way of announcing someone who's going out on loan, because, ultimately, if he does well at Grimsby, score some goals, it might not be the last we see of Andy Cook, surely, Gaz.
It's been a long-term topic in the group chat, hasn't it? Not just today. We were talking about it over the weekend when Simon Parker put the article in the TNA that Cook was likely to go, or the rumour was that Cook was likely to go, and we talked about it on and off all weekend, didn't we? And that obviously steps up the chat today when it was confirmed. You did say that, didn't you? You said that, because we were actually talking at the time about whether it was odd that Graham Alexander hadn't commented and that the comment had come from Ryan Sparks. And you said your view was that Graham might comment at the end of the season when Andy Cook's contract would be up. But I pointed out, and I think Lou did as well, that the way that article is worded, the website and the tributes and everything that have come in, it's a little bit as though he's done as a goodbye. It is fairly clear, I think, from the way the club has worded that statement, that Andy Cook, you can never say it's impossible, but I would imagine it's highly unlikely that he will play for City again. from a personal point of view, we've argued a little bit about this in the chat. I know me and Lou are on the same side. You're perhaps a little bit different. I quite steadfast in my view that I don't really understand it from a club's point of view, given that I still believe he's the best goal scorer in the squad. He's the only one I think capable of getting 20-odd goals a season in that squad. And to let somebody go when you're in the middle of a promotion push, no matter what division you're in, someone that can do that for you is a big risk, especially considering how strikers who can score those amount of goals are like gold dust, and City have struggled down the years to find them. Yes, he hasn't played. The argument is he hasn't played for regularly, shall we say, for over a year now.
I'll make the arguments, Gaz.
Go on, then. You make the argument.
No, I mean, look, I'll come to Jamie after this, but I guess, that, as I say, Gaz has kind of got that, obviously, that emotional connection, perhaps more so, whereas I've been looking at this and thinking, look, he's probably one of the higher earners. There was the reported new contract when they're in League Two, plus you would assume a bonus for promotion. He's not played since, in the last calendar year. He's not match fit. It doesn't seem on the pitch to me like that big of a loss, simply because, and the thing is as well, at League One level, he's never been that proven goal scorer either. I mean, Jamie, where do you kind of sit on this? Because I listened to what you said on West Yorkshire Sport Day this evening, and you kind of said it was a bit of a heart and head debate yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this conversation alone is proving that it is that age-old head versus heart situation. The heart wants Bradford City to keep a hold of Andy Cook, give him that fairy tale goodbye moment where he can say his farewell to the supporters in front of the Kop. Goodness, the real football romantic would allow him to get 12 more goals that would take him to 100 in the colours of Bradford City. But as we all know on this call, football really has no room for sentiment. And I think if Graham Alexander's time at Bradford City is anything to go by, sentiment is not something that he is willing to compromise on, not least the Richie Smallwood departure in the summer just gone. Andy Cook's a different case to Richie Smallwood. Andy Cook has at times single-handedly carried the football club through some pretty dismal times. When he arrived at the football club, they were facing the prospect of being a National League side. Let's not forget, they were in a relegation scrap 5 years ago. So that's why he will forever have such an affinity with the football club, and the supporters will hold him so dear because of what he's done in the colours of claret and amber. The head side of things, which is what you've referred to there, Chris, is that he is 35 years of age. He is on the back of an ACL injury, and he hasn't been used by Graham Alexander routinely for, over a year now, because obviously Barrow away was the last time that Graham Alexander had him in his side week in, week out. And so, yes, he will be on a decent wage, I would say, competitively within that Bradford City squad, and might that money be better used elsewhere? That's the head side of the discussion. So it's been a very complex day. I'm sure very much a day of mixed emotions for Bradford City supporters. The proof will be in the pudding. You know, you make the decision, you make your bed. Now, what's the result of it? Because I do see credit in Gaz's argument there, and I think many Bradford City supporters would agree with Gaz in that, a la Rotherham 2-2 away from home, that Bradford City still have some value in Andy Cook and that he can come on and make an impact. But as I've said routinely on our podcast, Take Me Home, I think this is more a question mark over whether or not Andy Cook is willing to be that impact player that at the moment, in the current climate, was a fringe player that was not getting on the bench in the squad. And I think he's probably gone to the head part of his conscience as opposed to the heart, and thought, I've not got long left at 35 years of age. I need to be playing football. And that's what Grimsby offers him as an opportunity.
Lou, I want to just bring you in on this because I know obviously you kind of along Gaz's train of thought more so. I mean, look, when someone's done so much for one club, it's obviously hard when it kind of comes to this point.
Yeah, listen, being no City fan, so I'm kind of not emotionally invested in it, but my perspective is a couple of things. One, I think it's a big risk from City. I really do. And the reason why I'm saying it is because City have scored at the front three. I'm taking point out of that because he's almost a winger's 10, so to speak. But they've scored 14 goals, so that's 20 goals. That'll make up eventually that 34 that they've scored already. So they've got to find somebody that is going to score them extra goals that are going to keep him in that playoff push. No doubt about it. I think what they've got at the moment, I don't think is going to be enough to possibly get him in that playoffs. I think they need to strengthen that area. My argument is that somebody like an Andy Cook, what me and Gaz kind of mentioned it earlier, is that the kind of, putting it politely, rocking horse poo, natural goal scorers, they're really hard to find. And if you're going to have to invest, you're going to have to spend a fair bit of money to find a trusted, natural, proven, experienced striker at EFL level, especially in League One. That one will come in, fit the system that Alexander wants. He has the patterns of play with the players that are there. The players that are already there are winners because they've got promoted, the majority of them last season, and have been promoted everywhere else as well. Pretty much so. And I think getting a potential young person, young kid, who's, yes, he'll have a bit of hunger and a point to prove, but he's in a very different stratosphere to where Andy Cook is. To come in and you're taking potentially 6 or 7 games to get up to speed with everything around the club, where you move in and all that kind of stuff that goes with it. Andy Cook's already there. He knows the people, he knows the staff, he knows the club, and the fans absolutely adore him. And I think in certain situations, Cook would have been extremely handy in City's running towards the end of this season. Finally, before we get other people's thoughts, I don't know what people think about this, but with that in mind, if Andy Cook is out of contract and, say, for example, does leave, I've kind of got 2 elements to this. One, I said I think City should either say we're going to keep him until the end of the season and we're going to ride it out and we're going to hopefully count him when we really need him. Or you say now, right, contract is up, we're not going to offer you a contract, let's try and get anything we possibly can for him. Which is difficult. Don't get me wrong, it's not the easiest market to go dipping in and spending money. He's 35-year-old and, he's not
on a decent wage.
Not going to cost a fortune with a big wage. But to loan one of your natural goal scorers out to a division below, which isn't much of a rival, for 4 months, we've not a ready raid replacement from what I can gather. I think it's a huge risk. I really do. I think, listen, Andy Cook's been phenomenal for Bradford City, and they probably feel like they might owe him a slight bit to make sure that he has prolonged his career as long as he can do, and he's got absolutely every right to. Playing devil's advocate, you've also got to look after yourselves in this, and I think if City are going to push for promotion and be in the playoffs, personally, I think you should have kept him.
Gaz?
Yeah, I'm with Lou. I just think from a club perspective, a club point of view, it just doesn't make sense unless you're going to go out there and get the equivalent rocking horse poo goal scorer for League One. And City's record at signing them, whatever division we're in, and the money that they cost makes that highly unlikely. Obviously, the proof's in the pudding. If we go out and bring a striker in who is capable or goes on to score 10, 15 goals before the end of the season in League One, fair enough, I'll hold my hands up. But I just don't see that happening. A youth loan, which is probably the most likely scenario at the moment, doesn't cut it for me. The fan base is split. A lot of people are saying it's sentimentality. That's why you want him to stay. Personally, it's not that with me. Personally, like Lou said, I can see him having a role, could have seen him having a role to play between now and the end of the season in changing games, mixing things up when you need to. He's a goal threat whenever he comes on the pitch. I'd actually argue that the fleeting appearances that we've seen of him this season, he's actually been quite good. He obviously got his double when he came on again in the Virtue Motors. He changed the game when he came on against Rotherham away. He did reasonably well when he came on away at Doncaster in the league. He nearly scored there. I think he obviously got his goal up at Newcastle in the Cup. I think he's done more than enough in his fleeting appearances so far this season to suggest that he could do a job. Obviously not as a starter, but as an impact player between now and the end of the season. The flip side of that is obviously, as Jamie was saying, from an Andy Cook point of view, are you happy with that? And if this has been pushed more so from an Andy Cook point of view, then I kind of get it, because he has to look after himself and earn a contract somewhere else for the next year or two after this. If, I suspected, City have said you're not going to be staying here on the wages that you're currently on. So it depends where it's come from. Depends who we sign as a replacement. And ultimately, it depends where we are come May.
Absolutely. And before we just continue, I'm just going to bring in our Huddersfield Town man, Stephen Downs, who is taking the time to join us. Jamie, I just want to come back to you. I guess it's fitting then, I guess, for Andy Cook, obviously, as a northeastern lad himself, that final goal that we think he's going to get in a City shirt came up at St James's Park.
Yeah, absolutely. And that for him will be a moment. And if that is to be his last goal, which I'm fairly confident it will be for Bradford City, then yeah, what a way to go out. And that, at the very least, is something to take away from this season. The 2 Grimsby goals, the comeback for him and to score in that fashion to win the game as well. And then to go up to Newcastle and score. I'm mightily pleased on a personal standpoint, that he's been able to have those moments in a Bradford City shirt. But the difficulty is, listening to you all talk about Andy Cook's value in this squad still is, just to lay out some of the facts. He hasn't scored a league goal for Bradford City since Boxing Day of 2024. Of course, a big factor in that is the ACL injury that he suffered not long afterwards. But the key fact in that for me is that Bradford City are 3rd in League One and have done that without 1 league goal from Andy Cook's head, right foot, left foot this season. Now, I'm not wading in with an opinion on whether I think Andy Cook could still do something this season. What I'm dealing in our facts, in the sense that Graham Alexander's headspace will be, we've got here without Andy Cook. The argument to that from some City supporters is when I think back to the Stevenage game, 1-1 away from home, the Lincoln game, 0-0 at home, the more physical encounters that Bradford City have experienced this season. Would Andy Cook have suited those games? Yes, he probably would have done with his qualities. And I distinctly remember, and Gaz might be able to help me out on this, but he came on against Lincoln and nearly scored from a header, which was saved.
Yeah, near the end.
0-0.
Yeah, it was a great save.
That to me, there was evidence there that he could still have a place in this team. But Graham Alexander's headspace, I suspect, will be, since that injury at Barrow on New Year's Day, we have evolved in this direction. We've got promotion. We've held our own in League One. We are 3rd, and we are in the automatic promotion race to get into the Championship post halfway through the season. And we've done that in the last year without Andy Cook. I think the blueprint of this team, whether we agree with this or not, I think the blueprint of this team has moved in a direction that doesn't, 1, suit Andy Cook's characteristics, and 2, has him involved within it. And there will be supporters now listening to this saying, yep, look, Andy Cook can give you a plan B, can give you a point of difference. That might be the case, but Graham Alexander clearly doesn't want to explore that anymore. And, I still think that Graham Alexander would have let him be in the squad, allowed him to be in the squad. It comes back down to that question. Does Andy Cook want to be that fringe player? I don't think he does at his age, which is why this decision has come around. And fundamentally, he's left the football club. I think you're absolutely spot on with what you've all said there. The key thing now is, how do they replace that hole that he leaves in the squad? Because whether he was playing or not, whether he was scoring or not, fundamentally, the squad composition right now is just 2, for me, out-and-out strikers, one of which there's a question mark in Stephen Humphreys, whether he can play on the left or as a striker. Graham Alexander's been quite clear on that. But Will Swan is the other one. I am not seeing Callum Kavanagh realistically being a viable option in the striking position for Bradford City. When he has played in recent weeks, it's been played on the left of that front 3. So I think they're still short in that area. And that now is the key, is which out-and-out striker are they going to bring in? What profile of out-and-out striker are they going to look to bring in this January? That will qualify the Cook decision. That, for me, will be the true barometer of whether or not this was the right call. It depends on what they bring next. They got it right with Max Power. When you look at the Richie Smallwood decision, you might say they got it right to an extent with Josh Nerfill coming in to replace Brad Halliday. Jury's still out on whether or not Alex Patterson being allowed to leave was the right call. And the same, you would say at the moment, surrounds Andy Cook.
Yeah, we'll come to that in a minute. I just want to go in with a couple of comments from Chris Potter, who's got in touch. First thing he says, Jamie's just upset that fans won't be asking you to keep asking Alexander where Cookie is. He then makes the fair point. He says City need to do what Sheffield United did to Bradford when they bought Hansen off them in January. Try and get a Dan Ballard, Yatta, or Wakeham, Rupp, get that checkbook out. And you kind of look at that, and in terms of a replacement, you know, losing a higher earner in Cook that he is, obviously it's a loan, so it may not be all of that, but it will free up some wage budget in that respect. And because of City sitting where they are in the league, what scope do you think there is actually for Stefan Rupp to get that checkbook out, as Chris puts it, and actually try and take an informed striker from elsewhere that could fit into the current system better than Andy Cook would?
That's the big question, isn't it? And that's the somewhat of an unknown at the moment for Bradford City supporters, is how willing is Stefan Rupp to get out this checkbook, like you say, and put money into the budget to allow the football club to go out and potentially purchase a replacement forward. We've made this point on the podcast routinely over recent weeks. Bradford City may not get a better chance than where they find themselves now in getting into the Championship. And
me and Gas have been having this conversation about both of our clubs in Lincoln and Bradford, to be fair.
Yeah. Well, absolutely right. And you know, on the Lincoln front, I think their recruitment has been outstanding. In the same way, I think Bradford City's recruitment has been absolutely outstanding. And that's why there needs to be a degree of trust, I would say. And, you know, naturally people will question Graham Alexander, David Sharp, Stephen Gent. But, you know, recent record would suggest that they've got more decisions right than wrong. I think that's a very fair statement to make. So it is that head versus heart thing again. And I think we can all acknowledge and appreciate the sentimentality that's been felt right now towards Andy Cook. But to go back to your question, yeah, I think that's the conundrum, I suspect, for, well, you know, Ryan Sparks going to Stefan Rupp and saying, Stefan, I think we need X amount now. It's that risk and reward for Stefan Rupp. If I put X amount in, I might get X return, and I might be looking at trying to sell a Championship club when I bought a League One club. Do I make a return on my investment? You know, can I make a penny on this? I'm not saying that that's his ambition, but no doubt that those thoughts will be going in his mind right now, surely, given where the club is at. You know, they win that game in hand, they've got on Lincoln, they're effectively second, you know, if it's a big if, but they're effectively second placed at the moment in League One. So, yeah, I'm sure Graham Alexander, as manager, is saying, look, I've got this club in the position now, back me, give me the opportunity to take this club forward. You know, I'm making these big key decisions in letting Andy Cook go, and he will understand, because he's an empathetic person. He will understand the emotion that surrounds the decision to let Andy Cook leave. You know, he'll be going, back me, give me the best chance possible to get this club into the top two, and having a forward that can bring you 10 more league goals would go a long way in achieving that, surely.
Absolutely. Steve? No.
Yeah, I just wanted to hi Jamie, all right.
Hello, mate.
Just wanted to put a quick deal for you, live on air, see whether you'll take it or at least put it to Alexander. Obviously, I'm speaking to you as a lowly Huddersfield Town fan at the moment in fifth, but I'd be quite happy to give you Dion Charles and a packet of crisps for Bobby Poynton if you take that deal. You know, we can check hands now live on air. That'd be great if you can.
Well,
Bobby Poynton says he doesn't like Huddersfield very much, Downsy.
It's all right. I'm sure he'll get to like it when we show him, you know, Mavs and cherry tree spoons and stuff. You know.
Oh, Jamie's been brought in as an intermediary here. Hang on a minute, he wasn't signed up for that.
That's right. Look, if we're going to sit at the negotiation table, Stephen, I'll riposte on you, Dion Charles, and I'll raise you Joe Taylor, because that looks like a possible opportunity.
That's fine, as long as we get Bobby Poynton who's in form, that's fine. I'm happy with that.
I'm not wagering Bobby Poynton here, by the way. I'm not gifting him away. There's no chance.
No, I think no. Generally, you all make really good points on Cook. You know, I just felt, I don't know. I've only come halfway through, but I felt it was a bit disrespectful to not have any comments from really Alexander or anybody on the Cook deal moving to Grimsby. I think for City fans, they would have liked that. I know, Chris, you're against that. You know, you've made that quite clear in our WhatsApp group. But I do think, you know, he's a club legend in Cook for what he's done for City and for City fans. So
What do you make of that, Jamie? What do you make of the fact that there aren't any comments from Graham Alexander on that departure statement?
Yeah, I am surprised by it, and I can't work out whether or not there's a humility from Graham in not wanting to make it about him and letting Andy Cook have his moment, because that is the type of person that Graham is, and I hope that doesn't get us all confused, given that he hasn't made a public comment yet. I'm sure he'll speak a lot on Wednesday when the pre-match press conference takes place ahead of Cardiff. There's also the element of, Ryan Sparks speaking on behalf of the club's position within it as well. Maybe that just from a hierarchical standpoint, it made more sense for Ryan at the very top of the football club to make comment. I did think it was interesting that, within Andy Cook's side of the statement, that whilst he thanked all the backroom staff and coaches, so you would put Graham Alexander into that mix, but he didn't necessarily name check. But then I suppose if you name check Graham, then you'd have to name check Mark Hughes, because you'd argue that his best season at Bradford City, well, there's no argument. His best season at Bradford City was under Mark Hughes when he scored 30 plus goals. So yeah, I curious, I'd say, and maybe you're right when you say that he's holding that goodbye message until the end of the season when the contract is up, because we're all saying that he's done and we're all saying that he's gone, and I think we can say that fairly confidently. But until that contract is up, he is still a Bradford City player, and he scores 20 goals for Grimsby. Does that rejig the thoughts of Andy Cook moving forward? I don't know. Maybe I'm going too far down the line here. But
to be fair, that's kind of how I'd looked at it. To be fair, is that it's a loan move. There's still potentially scope for him to come back, and if he proves his fitness at Grimsby and chips in a few goals, then maybe there might be a thought for, or something at least, for Graham Alexander to ponder. Just a couple more questions, and then we'll kind of let you go if that's okay, because I appreciate we're taking up your evening. One of the things that Steve mentioned or kind of brought to light is that Andy Cook has put a statement out through his wife, Casey, on X. I'll just quickly read it through. It says, "I honestly don't know where to begin. The last 5 years at this club have been nothing short of unbelievable. This place has been my home, and saying goodbye is incredibly heartbreaking. From the bottom of my heart, thank you to every single one of you for the love and support you've shown me throughout my time here, on and off the pitch. It's something that I will carry with me forever and has never gone unnoticed. As you say, thank you to Ryan Sparks for believing in me from the very first moment I walked through the door. To my teammates, past and present, thank you for the memories, the battles, and the brotherhood. And to all the staff, especially those who stood by me during the darkest days when injury tried to break me, I can't thank you enough. You helped me through the moments I'll never forget. Forever proud and forever grateful." And I mean, it just kind of adds to the statement that's kind of gone out from him personally through social media, that it does kind of add to everything, suggesting that there is no way back. There is no, this is it sort of thing.
Yeah, look, I think there is a general acceptance from all parties, Andy Cook included in that this is more than likely the end for him, and that's probably why it's been such a difficult decision for him to make, because it goes back again to the head versus heart deliberation that the fans will have had, he will have had, maybe a certain journalist who covers the football club maybe had as well. It is that complex balance, I suspect. But again, I go back to the point that there is no room for sentiment in football. It is cutthroat. It is business. And in many ways, sometimes the toughest decisions are the best decisions, or the hardest decisions make out to be the best ones. It's not as clear to see in the moment. And as I've said already, the true judgment on whether or not this was the right decision will come in time. But I think there's an acceptance on his part of this situation that he needs to move forward, and Grimsby have given him that opportunity. And I just thought to go back to the point that was made regarding the fact that it's a loan and not a permanent, is that I don't know how viable a permanent deal would have been for him, even for League Two clubs, because they have to take consideration as well that he hasn't scored a league goal since Boxing Day. We all know what he can do, but he is coming back from an ACL injury. And whilst you don't want to tarnish anybody with that brush, naturally, because it's a business, clubs will be slightly wary of that. So why not take him on a loan? And he'll be on a good deal at Bradford City. So they'll pay percentage of his wage. I don't know what the details are of this loan deal at Grimsby. Whereas if he was to sign permanently, it's likely that he wouldn't get the same terms at a new club, and so it means he still gets the same terms to an extent whilst he's on his current deal at Bradford City, and then can regroup in the summer. So I'm sure it made more financial sense for it to take place in the way that it has. And then he'll look to try and get a new deal with a new club, you would suspect, in the summer. Whereas when you look at the Alex Patterson situation, Walsall top end of League Two, who he might be a lesser terms, but a longer contract because he's 26 years, 27 years of age, and that makes more business sense because of the age and the investment that Walsall are putting into a player like Alex Patterson.
Absolutely, that's fair. Final thing from me, just kind of reflecting on January and the season, kind of on a whole, obviously where City are at the moment. Obviously, potential to need a replacement for Andy Cook, but how do you see the January window so far? Obviously, a couple of players in already, rumours from a duo from Newcastle coming in potentially, in Joe White and Harrison Ashby. How do you kind of assess the potential? Well, what we got, a fortnight or so of the remaining of this January window for Bradford?
Well, the Louis Sibley deal is, in my opinion, a very good deal, a very, very smart piece of business. Someone who's versatile, who's left-footed, which is key, particularly if he's going to be playing on the left of that front three. Graham Alexander likes left-footed players playing on the left side, and conversely, right-footed players playing on the right side. So Sibley, I think, is a very, very canny addition. Look, these two loan players that they've been linked with from Newcastle, interesting careers if you look at them individually. White, who has been on loan at Crewe, MK, Hartlepool. I remember seeing him first up a few years back, actually, when City won 2-0 at Hartlepool. I think Jan Songo scored that game. That's how long ago it was. But can play in that attacking midfield role in that front three. I would suspect that's where he'd be deployed if he was to be brought in. And then the chap, the other lad whose name I can't remember, a right-sided defender, I think, who has got decent pedigree. 7 senior appearances for West Ham before he moved to Newcastle. Hasn't really got a sniff since making that move up north to the first team, but played quite a lot for QPR last season. So decent pedigree. And what I like, if that is to be the case, and they do look to bring this lad in, he was handed his debut by David Moyes at West Ham, his senior debut. And Graham Alexander very much rates the opinion of David Moyes, given his playing career, played under him at Preston, owes a lot to David Moyes in getting the best out of him as a player professionally. Point I'm trying to make here is that he trusts David Moyes' judgment. Look at Jensen Metcalfe as another player that's got links with Everton and the like. So I can see some very faint link in terms of the judgment call that's made, particularly on the right side of defender whose name eludes me. But let's wait and see if those happen. If that is the case, there's a lot of rumours going around at the moment on social media.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's that time of year, isn't it? Well, Jamie, thank you for taking the time to join us here on the West Yorkshire Football Show, mate. We do appreciate you taking some time out of your evening to join us.
No worries, chaps. Thank you for having me as always. Good to see you all.
Thanks, Jamie.
Cheers, Jamie. I'll see you around the
guys,
negotiating table. Cheers, mate.
I'll see you there. I'll see you in 2 weeks' time, Stephen.
Cheers, Jamie.
Cheers, mate. Thank you, mate.
We'll get you back on around the playoff and promotion situation later in the season, no doubt.
Yeah, well, City will be up automatically then, so Town can worry about
the
playoffs.
All right, Jamie. I've never what are you throwing shade at me for, Jamie? Jeez.
Well, I'm only doing that because I can leave now, so I'll get it in before I go.
You take care, mate. Thanks a lot.
See you guys. Cheers.
See you, mate.
Thank you. There we go. That's BBC Radio Leeds' Jamie Raine, the Bradford City commentator and correspondent. Very quickly, because for some reason my camera is goes completely.
Hello.
I'm just going to let you guys just reflect on the Bradford City situation whilst I just reboot my laptop. So enjoy.
I want me to go, guys, seeing as it's City. I think the thing with Cookie is, as we alluded to there, is what type of player we bring in to replace him. I was talking to someone earlier today, and it's kind of like, do we go all eggs in one basket down the plan A route, which is the route that people are saying, oh, we've not needed Cook for the last 12 months. We've got to where we are in League One without him. Do we go down that route and buy another player similar to what we've got? Or do we go down as we need a type of player such as Andy Cook who can come on and give us a plan B at various times in games, which is what I think Cook would have been brilliant at between now and the end of the season. I don't know what you think, lads, but it's a big decision for the recruitment team. Alexander, that is for me.
I just
go on, Steve. You go first, mate. I'll go for it after.
No, I just think you correctly. Sorry, Gaz. That's something that I've spoke about at Town, that we don't have that different option really. I mean, we've got Bojan, but he's not a Cook type, big nasty sort of centre forward that's happy to sort of like go against the big centre backs, and we'll come on to the perfect example of that, which we could have done with somebody like that. But I just think the club's taken its decision. I can see why City fans don't agree with it. I can see why it's split as well. Like Jamie was saying, he's not scored since Boxing Day or whatever, and he's had a bit of a bad time in front of goal. But I just think he's an experienced player at EFL level. He knows the division in terms of his past playing career, and I if it gets to them playoffs, what a handy person to come off the bench and do the business. So unless you do go, like James says, automatically. But yeah, I'm just a bit surprised that they've done it. But if it sort of frees up wages to bring somebody else in, then fair enough. I just don't see where you're going to get that like for like replacement. I mean, you put a couple of options in the chat earlier, and I don't see them being the Cook's type, if I'm honest.
You made a really good point about the playoffs. The playoffs there. There's been times already when he's not been on the bench in this last 6-7 weeks where City have said, City fans have stood there and said, we could have done with Andy Cook today. It'd have been brilliant to come off bench. And if we're saying that after 6 or 7 weeks, I think the worry is what it's going to be like for the rest of the season. But ultimately, as we say, it depends what we do in January, who we bring in, what type of striker we bring in, and where we are come May.
I think what's interesting me, Gaz, and you'll see it far often than the rest of us put together, but his recruitment, and Jamie made some really fair points. Like I say, we can stand our own opinion, but they're all valid points within themselves out with that we're all making. But Alexander seems to be going down a bit of a different route of personnel he's recruiting, and obviously that might be with the assistance of Stephen Gent and the rest of the team, but they're very technical. It's not a traditional kind of old school lump it, big physical lads. We're talking about Metcalf in there. Humphries is a big boy, but he's probably more technical than anything else. Swan's quite technical in there. Cavan has been quite technical in the past as well. So when you talk about potentially if you got the two lads in from Newcastle, Sibley's technical as well. It's a very different model that he seems to be going down, which I think is quite interesting actually. And how much of a conversations around the table that has been, because it's shifted, hasn't it? Really, is that one?
Yeah, it really hasn't. And like I say, it particularly when you're looking at bringing a striker in, do you carry on going down that road and put all your plans in, all your eggs in the basket of plan A, or do you like to have a little bit of an alternative in the Andy Cook mould and have a plan B up there? I'm really interested to see what happens. But like I say, we're just going to have to. We can't really judge until we see who comes in and where we are in May. That's the way I look at it. Andy Cook's been a legend. He's given us some hope in dark times at City when, as Jamie rightly said, we looked like we could have dropped out the Football League. He was a beacon of light for us and kept us going through those dark times. So he's really going to be missed, and we're going to have a job on to replace him either way.
What do you guys make of that comment that we saw from Chris earlier on in terms of, now that you're in the January window, and given where City are in the table, Gaz in particular, if you're going to lose Cook, surely you would invest and go and get that striker that, rather than a young Ethan Wheatley on loan from Man United or whatever, you go and get someone that's already scoring a few goals, like a Dan Bard at Leyton Orient, Yatta in Leeds at Notts County who's doing all right, or a Jaden Wareham at Exeter. Someone that's, already scoring goals potentially for their club in League One, but it's just a lesser club in, table position at least.
I think that's why the fans are split, Chris. Like, obviously, that you've got those that are saying you only want to keep him sentimental-wise. We've done well without him for a year. And then there's us, like me and Lou were saying there, those types of strikers that Chris is talking about there, they cost money. That's the problem at the end of the day. They're going to cost money, and even more money in January. They cost more. January, you pay more in January than you do in the summer. So ultimately, that's going to come back to how much Stefan Rupp is willing to put into the club to bring that striker to City, and whether he's willing to do it. The rumour is that, or the story is that he's already invested money in the summer to make the budget more competitive than it otherwise would have been. But as me and you have said on here, and as Jamie said then, City now have a fantastic opportunity. We are in a race for the top two with Lincoln and Cardiff at the moment. We have those three teams have a points advantage over the rest of the division at the moment. And do we look at it and say now is the time to speculate to accumulate, or do we not? And that is going to be, like I said, the type of striker we bring in, the money that we've got to bring that striker in. It's all questions that need to be answered right now, Chris. And I honestly don't know whether I'll be surprised if we invest big in January. I really will, because it's just such a difficult market. And that was the worry that a lot of the half of City fans that didn't want Cup to go were especially worried about, the money that would be there to find the replacement.
I think I'm going to chip in here as well, is that if you are a team that's ambitious and wants to get promoted, you have to go out and get a striker that is going to guarantee you goals, and that is what costs you money across pretty much your squad. You know, there's a difference between having a go and being proper serious of being ambitious and getting promoted to the Championship. Now, obviously, we've seen the news with Andy Cook and, you know, what's happened in the past with City, you know, dwelling in the doldrums and coming back up. But if City is serious about getting in the Championship, Rupp is going to have to get a checkbook out. It's as simple as that. That's the top and bottom of it. And I think, again, harking back to the recruitment and the kind of players there, I'm not saying this is going to be the case, but say City didn't go up for the next couple of years, they're now getting assets in that squad that could potentially get some half-decent resale value. Now, how long did that fan base go, we were close to getting promoted, but we just didn't back ourselves really to go that next mile. And now we're potentially losing a couple more extra players to either divisions in and around them or division above, and then you start having to churn over players. If you're going to get promoted, listen, I'm not saying it's the case with Huddersfield Downs. He knows that they paid, obviously, the money for Taylor, but you're going to have to spend some big money to go and get a good striker now in League One, and that will cost you. Huddersfield have made a mark. You're going to have to pay probably £1 million or so, and he's prepared to do that. That's a big question.
To be fair, you look at someone like Yatta, though, who could get some goals. He's a big lad at 6'4" from Notts County, who's had a decent season so far, and he's out of contract at the end of the season. So you're probably not talking millions to be able to replace, you know, somebody.
End of the season, though. This is end of the season I'm talking about now. Now you've got 4 months and you're in a promotion race to potentially get promoted. We're going to have to.
This is what I mean. Like, if you go to Notts County and say we'll give you a couple $100,000 for Alsan Yatta, bearing in mind that he's out of contract in 6 months and they won't want to let him leave for a free, they'll probably snap your hand off, even for a couple $100,000 at this stage. So likewise, if you've got players that are in League One that are at lower clubs or in League Two that are doing well at top end that actually are out of contract at the end of the season, it might not cost you quite as much as you think. Let's not tarnish everything by Huddersfield's stupid Joe Taylor brush. Let's be fair. Oh, come on, Downsy. It's $3 million. What's his return so far? So yeah, it is what it is. It's going to be interesting to see. I want to kind of move away from Bradford City, but just before we do, we need to talk about the actual football side of Bradford City as well. Go on, Gaz. Go on. One final thing before we talk about actual football.
Well, the only thing we've not mentioned is, do we go for a loan? Do you go for a loan from the Championship? Someone that's maybe made the step up in the past and isn't getting game time in the... I'm just throwing a name out there. Macaulay Langstaff. Do you go for somebody like that who's scored goals lower down the pyramid, isn't playing regularly at Millwall, might be available on loan? Do you look at somebody like that? I'm not saying it's the route to go down. The negatives of going down that route are very clear as well, but it's another option to look at that might mean you don't have to fork out hundreds of thousands of pounds or £1 million right now.
The first name that came to me when you said that, although to be fair, he's probably played more minutes than I thought he might have done, was Charlie Kelman at Charlton Athletic, who got goals for Leyton Orient last season. It's certainly be an interesting way to go. Football, you didn't actually have any on Saturday. Of course, it was a postponement, a frozen pitch that denied the Rotherham game. how are you kind of looking at that, given the recent form? Is it a little bit of a bonus weekend in terms of rest and recuperation ahead of what is a big game this weekend against Cardiff? Or are you looking at it and thinking, well, actually, you probably could have notched up 3 or 4 goals maybe against a really poor-looking Rotherham side, and it would have been good momentum to take into the Cardiff game of the weekend?
Yeah, you can look at it both ways, can't you? You really can. I mean, City struggle against teams that are on bad runs. We always do. Rotherham have lost 6 on the bounce, so there's nothing to say that they weren't going to turn up and surprise us and pull us shockers at Valley Parade. You look at it as we had a hectic period over Christmas, so a few extra days off and a bit of a break could be good. It also means Max Power is one. You're going to like this, Chris. Max Power is one booking away from a 2-game suspension, so if he had been booked against Rotherham, he would have missed Cardiff and Huddersfield. If he's booked against but now he will obviously play against Cardiff. If he's booked against Cardiff, he will miss Huddersfield and Lincoln. So there's that to take into account as well. When you look at the table, the fact that Cardiff dropped points is good. We're now sitting there with a game in hand on Cardiff and Lincoln. Win that game in hand and beat Cardiff next week, suddenly you're top of the league. So it's early days. It's January. We've talked about the league isn't going to even itself out until come March, April time, when everybody's played the same amount of games. It's going to literally be then before we get to that stage. So I don't think you can really judge now, Chris. It'll be interesting to see how we do against Cardiff. I don't like the fact it's an early kickoff, but we have had a nice rest period now. So let's see how we get on, and whether it's we'll only know when we see how we do against Cardiff, won't we?
I assume you'll be going for that one on Saturday, even though it's an early kickoff. I know how you can't stand an early kickoff.
Yeah, I hate early kickoffs. I really, really hate them. I'd rather it be a weeknight on a Tuesday or a Thursday than an early kickoff. But yeah, I'm going, Chris. I've missed a couple of games recently, and obviously the Rotherham game was postponed. So yeah, I'll be there on Saturday for the early kickoff. And I think our next 4 games are all our next 4 Saturdays are all 12:30s. We've got Cardiff at 12:30, then we've got Huddersfield at 12:30. And we've got Lincoln, obviously, on the Tuesday night. And then our next 2 Saturdays after that at 12:30 is Doncaster and Luton. So 4 Saturdays on the bounce for early kickoffs, 2 at home and 2 away.
You better get used to them then. And what are you expecting from this Cardiff game? Because obviously they are going well in the league, drop points at the weekend. They're not unbeatable away from home, though, as they found out at Sinsel Bank. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's one of those where it'll come back to that clash of styles, I suppose, to a point, in terms of the way that Brian Barry Murphy likes to play and the way that Bradford have been playing this season.
Yeah, I mean, so far this season, we've done well against possession-based teams who want to dominate the ball. That's been what we've done really well against. We did well against them at their place earlier in the season. We beat them 3-1, basically because of that, because we dominated with the press and put them under pressure when they had the ball, and they couldn't handle it like we've done against other teams at Valley Parade. That's probably the main time we've done it away from home. It'll be interesting. I would imagine they will come and play that way because that's how Brian Barry Murphy plays. I don't think it'll change regardless of what we did to them earlier in the season. But like you said, they are beatable. We've proved that. Lincoln proved that the other week. It'll be really, really interesting to see how it goes. Cardiff are just the team at the moment that even when they drop points, they seem to maintain that little buffer at the top of the league. They seem to bounce back fairly quickly and still have that little buffer. So, yeah, I don't know how it'll go. Like you say, like I keep saying, I don't like predictions. I'll be really interested to see if we can repeat what we did earlier in the season, because it's a while since we've done that, come up against a team that likes to dominate the ball and press them to death. We haven't been able to do it for a while, so I'm looking forward to seeing it on Saturday, to be honest.
Yeah, it's certainly one of those where obviously for when we had Cardiff at Lincoln just before Christmas, I looked at it and thought this is a bit of a marker or a test of where we are this season. And surprisingly, we kind of came through it. We'll see how it goes then, Gaz. And
mate.
I don't know which is better. I think I'll be I think I'll be willing on a draw. I think from a Lincoln perspective, I think that'd be my best way of going for it. Let's turn our attention then to Huddersfield Town. Probably not a great deal to say on Huddersfield Town overall. 8 games unbeaten, lost at the weekend. Apparently everything's on fire again, and Lee Grant needs to go. Is the verdict from most Town fans, from what I can gather. Steve Downs. Stockport, as I say, at the weekend. Look, one of those, a narrow defeat against a side that is challenging for the playoff places with Town.
Yeah, Lee Grant went to go get a 0-0 draw at Stockport and ultimately failed in his attempt at getting a 0-0 draw. He was close, but he failed, and we lost 1-0 to a pretty bog standard League One goal of whipping a free kick into a box. Well, whipping it to the side, who then the lad crossed it into the box, and somebody got a toe end onto it. Disappointing to not even lay a glove on him. Didn't really have any proper chances throughout the game. Players putting in poor performances. There's rumours of a bust up with Alfie May. So yeah, you say you joke and you say everything's on fire. I wouldn't say it's on fire, but it's not particularly fantastic in terms of morale. Yes, the league table is there. It's a false league table position. Because you have to take into account everybody else has got about 5 games on us. So, that 5th will soon turn into 9th when everybody probably wins their games in hand. But yeah, morale is not good.
Ludicrous. Utterly ludicrous that morale is so on its ass, apparently, and yet you're sitting 5th in the League One table. Mental.
Yes, but you're not emotionally connected to the club, so don't see the bigger picture within the club. You're only seeing it from an outside perspective.
Discuss the madness from an outside perspective.
Me?
Yeah.
Your name is Lou.
You've got a lot to say on this Town situation, so I'm giving you a chance to reel it all off.
No, listen, I think I get it, because when you like to Steve, etc., invested it as a fan, you do see a load more stuff. You see the games and all that with it. Outside looking in, there's a massive overreaction for me. I've said it from day one. People still wanted Grant out, and I've said it for how many times that you built a whole new squad, brand new manager, brand new coach, and I just think it's a big rebuilding job at Town. It's not going to happen overnight. I hear, Steve, that other teams have got games in hand, but I also think that you deserve what you get, and games in hand don't count for anything unless you get the points on the table. I'm a bit old school like that.
But they will do, Lou. They will win them games in hand.
Yeah, they could do, mate. They could do, mate.
And I agree with you. And I agree with you. If they win those games in hand, and we end up 9th in the division, we deserve to be 9th in the division.
I think what's really difficult is obviously there's been a lot of money spent by Mr. Nagel and the team to one on the stadium and one on the players, and those expectations get higher and higher the more that you spend. And I get it. I said it from beginning of the season. I didn't think Huddersfield were going to get automatically promoted, just because money doesn't always get you instant success. It goes a long way. But there's just a lot of work, I think, that's been done to get Town into a position where they can compete to potentially get promoted. I think where you are now is probably where you might end up. I've said again, if you fail to reach a playoffs, that is a failure. But I think at the moment in January where you are is kind of where I expected. I'm actually probably tracking you a little bit ahead of where I thought you might potentially be, because I think you'd get into the rhythm of it in that second half of the season. But yeah, I'm not going to the game, so I can only see what I'm seeing outside, and I'm seeing a load of stuff on social media that as an outsider looks a big overreaction, and is a bit actually to put things in perspective where you are with your the stuff off the field that you've kind of got sorted. You've got a decent enough squad. Listen, you've just lost Leo Constantine, who's arguably your best player, so you've got to find to replace him, maybe with one player or two. So that's another rebuilding job again that Lee Grant's got to deal with, and the rest of the team. And you're going to get that because you're in League One, and that's not being disrespectful, but that's just the part of the course what football is about. I think it's hard, like I say, to give a proper invested opinion because I've not seen it, but from the outside looking in, Town seem to be doing as expected, or what some of us thought they would do. And yeah, if you don't make the playoffs, it's a failure, but I don't think you will. I think you'll get into the playoffs, and I think there's just got to be an element of
But,
you just can't
but
keep
if we,
changing managers. You just can't keep changing managers. This is what I said about a load of clubs, and you guys know I sound like a broken record with it. But changing managers does not always work.
the
And
issue is, Lou. The issue is right. We've only got 2 points. 2 points against anybody in the top 7. Our record against teams around us is horrific. So we've got Burton Albion this weekend. We'll probably go beat Burton Albion 4-0. I'm not saying that as a big head. I'm just saying if you track the results this season and what we've done against, say, the poorer sides. I know we drew against Burton Albion earlier this season, but you look at what realistically the average goals and what we've done points wise against those teams at the bottom, we've won those games. But when it comes to the top 7, he just doesn't have a clue. I mean, I watched the Stockport game. I was obviously at the Lincoln game with Chris. I think what Town fans are frustrated with as well is, and I've said this, and you guys know that I've said this, and I've said this for months. If Michael Duff would have been given the money that Lee Grant has been given and the squad that has clearly been assembled to this point, Michael Duff will be doing a lot better. Maybe not in league position, but we at least would see some assembly of what he's trying to do on the pitch. The fans had a bit more of a connection with him. I listened to his press conference today, and his press conference is 12, 13 minutes long. I just didn't understand anything he was trying to say. I mean, the fact of the matter is, whatever's happened with Alfie May, which is a point on its own, he's just not convincing anybody in that press conference that he's left Alfie May out because of a niggle. That just doesn't compute at all in our heads. And I think it's just like, he comes up with these phrases, the groups, where he always blames the players. He doesn't take any responsibility himself, which really doesn't make any sense since he's the one that's leading the team, managing the team, doing the tactics, doing the substitutions. His substitutions, in-game management is horrific. I put it up there with Fotheringham. And you know what I thought about Fotheringham. I know we've got his number 1 fan in the top left-hand corner, but, so I just don't believe. At the start of the season, I was really excited for what he could do. And then as the season's gone on, he just doesn't. He doesn't do it for me in what he says. I don't believe anything really what he says. I don't think he's got a voice in the dressing room. I'm just not convinced by the bloke at all. And I think, unfortunately, a lot that what seems to match up is we've had promises from the right of the top of the club since they've come in, and none of those promises have come to pass, and we've done worse because we've been relegated. And then we've got a manager now that doesn't seem to be able to speak his mind or say anything with any credence in a press conference, and it's just words for nothing, and that's the frustration. And then when you got Stockport and you don't even lay a glove on them, like we literally didn't have an attack really against them. We're not playing Real Madrid or Barcelona, it's Stockport. I'm not saying that they're not a good side in this league, they are. But to not lay a glove on them, you laugh, Chris, but you think it's funny because Lincoln are doing well, but if Lincoln were third bottom, you'd be absolutely raging. You'd be absolutely raging. But they're not. They're third top. So hang
on. If Lincoln were third bottom, yes, I'd be raging. But you're sitting there raging at being 5th in the frigging league.
Yes, but you don't understand the context of where Town have been, the emotion that Town supporters have been through over the last 6-7 years. God. We don't, though. You don't. You don't understand what Gaz has been through in the last 20-odd years with Bradford City being in the position they've been.
You went on a magical mystery tour to the Premier League, came back, and now you're where you should be.
No, that's not. That is just such a simplified, non-emotive understanding of what's happened at Huddersfield Town. It's about as far away as you could possibly get. I don't agree. I don't agree with what you've just said at all. I think
what's the answer then, Downsy, mate? What is it? What's got to happen to change things?
I just want to let Gaz come in because he did put his hand up to make a comment.
It was just basically reiterating, I think, what the crux of this argument is, and it all comes down to expectation. Lou commented that at the start of the season, he did. He expected them to be roughly where they are now. The Town fan base don't expect them to be there. The Town fan base expect them to be pushing for automatic promotion more so than they are. I think that's what it boils down to. And you can call it delusions of grandeur. You can call it unrealistic expectations. But when they've spent that money and when they've come down, whether they are where, I know Chris has a point, and I do think that Town, personally, they're a bottom end Championship, top end League One club. But that's what they have been. That's what my opinion is. Town fans have been on a journey where they've had them up in the Premier League within. How long ago were it down? 7-8 years ago? You were in the Premier League. So to be where you are now and to have all this kind of stuff going on where you're not happy with this, that, and the other, and you're spending money and when you throw money at it, Lou hit a nail on the head when he said when you throw money at it and you spend the money, that just raises the expectation even more. So I think it all comes down to expectation and what Town fans have, where they've been in recent years to where they are now and where they expect to be versus what outsiders look at when they look at Town. That's what I think it comes down to. And I think that's why there's a difference of opinion here.
Yeah, but also, if Nagel had come out or the board or whoever in the last 3 years and said, we ain't got a pot to piss in, we've got no money, and, you're going to have to temper your expectations, I'm pretty sure 95% of the fan base will go, all right, it's not good. We don't like the fact we've got no money, but we understand, the difficulty of being in. The problem is the promises that have been made that we're going to be back in the Premier League inside 3 years, and then we get relegated to League One. The promises of going, well, we're going to buy this player and that player and whatever. And yes, he has put his hand in his pocket, but then not to marry that up with a management team or like, for instance, letting Darren Moore have 28 matches and he should have been sacked after 5. Sacking Duff with 10 games to go when it was absolutely pointless when we still could have got in the playoffs. And you might as well have given Duff the money this year that what Lee Grant has got. Then you hire Lee Grant, who's never managed a football game in his life, who's then given £1.2 million of Alfie May, Joe Lowe, all these players that have come back who, might not have cost money in massive transfer fees, but have cost money in wages. And you've given him to a rookie manager who doesn't really know his arse from his elbow. And I just think it's just the mismanagement of the management team and the system and the style and any semblance of plan. And then because we're not given, and then the other part of that, Gaz, is you do all this communication and saying we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and now things are going not spectacularly well. Although what Chris would laugh at that, and because we're in 5th, and then not to have any communication from anybody at the club except for the manager who just reads out of an FA rule book. It's just that's what's frustrating. There's no accountability.
Do you know what this reminds me of? Where you're talking there, this reminds me of what City were like before Alexander came in and before David Sharp came in, and probably from the period that Edin Rahic was involved. And obviously, the money is different because Town have spent a lot more money than we ever did. But the arguments that you put in there, Downsy, if you made, what did you say? He said you'd be in the Premier League within 3 years.
He said last year, before we got relegated, he said when he first took over, the plan was to get Town back in the Premier League within 3 years, and we got relegated in the first year that he owned us.
That is like, that has echoes of what Rahic said. He said something about we've got a 5-year plan to get to the Premier League. There's so many arguments that everything you're talking about here, Downsy, and like I said, the only difference is the fact that you've gone out and spent all this money. But everything that you're saying now about Town is what City was saying about what City fans were saying about our ownership and our club before David Sharp and Graham Alexander came in. It really is.
Well, this is what there's probably multiple examples. There's probably multiple examples though of owners, chairman, whatever, coming out and saying we've got an X amount of year plan. Hang on, let me finish. And them not working because I remember the 15-year-old Lincoln. Steph Wright, the chairman at the time, said we've got a 5-year plan to kind of get ourselves to a championship. And the year after that was supposed to have finished, we were relegated to National League. Look, even in non-league, Lou, an example that you and I can relate to, AFC Files with David Haythorne, the fact that they put 2022 on the sleeves of their shirts for years, because that was the year that they were aiming to get into the Football League by. They had this big grand plan over so many years to get into the Football League. They put 2022 on the sleeves of the shirts. And where are they now? Back in the National League North. Like, there will be countless examples of where owners and chairmen say, we've got a plan to get to such and such a level in so many years. And it doesn't work. They rarely ever do.
No, but yes, that and you're right in that. But it's the fact that when he said it and we've been relegated and there's still no plan to get back. You know, he didn't sack Mark Cartwright, which, for months and months I went on about how he wasn't delivering his best for the football club. There's just a lot of things that have gone into where we are at the moment and the pent-up frustration. And unfortunately for Lee Grant, the reason I feel slightly sorry for him is because he's a young head coach and he's been put into an absolute whirlwind. Whereas if he had an experienced coach, or even Michael Duff, again, you give Michael Duff this squad, we are having these problems. We're going to Stockport and at least trying to lay a glove on them. You might lose.
What do you think, Luke?
Going to try and win the game.
I was saying about the similarities with City. You said something else there, down the plan, communication, false promises, over expectations. They are 4 phrases that City fans used to come out and say all the time when we were in that mess. And I saw you nodding along, so I'd be interested to see what you think, Lou.
Yeah, listen, we hear it all the time, don't we, from people, and they come out to kind of, set expectations, isn't it? With fans and get people on the side that they can join along on the journey and all that kind of stuff. Well, actually, sometimes it's all well and good saying it, but it's going to bite you on the backside if it don't work, and you've got to be big enough and have thick enough skin to deal with it. I'm a bit old school. I think you need somebody really strong on the ground to make a club run. We've seen it at City. The owners went in the country for a while. They've tried to have somebody on the ground that tried to do bits and bobs and didn't really work. Now Ryan's got there with David Sharp. He needed help. Let's be honest, known Ryan for a long time. He needed a little bit of help because he was trying to do everything himself. He's got David Sharp in, he got Gent in, and he's built the infrastructure. And I think it's the same with Town. I do. I'm not saying that those people in ownership are not football people. They could well be football people, but it makes a big difference when you've got somebody who has traditionally been in English football for a long period of time, that knows the system, that has the contacts, that is on the ground day in, day out in his country, that will travel the hard yards to get the benefit of the club. So, listen, it's one of those, Downsy, I 100% agree. When stuff's not going right, you've got to communicate. You can't have it one way and not the other, because that's what gets people backs up. But the thing is, once you start saying the statements that have been coming out in recent years and you're not following it up through the good times and the bad, fans have got every right to go, hang on a minute, this isn't right. I get it. I'm looking at it naively from the outside looking in. You're 5th in the table, you're doing all right, potentially
They're on the ground
and doing all that kind of stuff. But then, exactly. But then I've seen examples, I've seen it in non-league where people, go and buy grounds and assets and lease stuff and then don't invest in the first team. Nagel has invested in their first team, has put plenty of money in there now. And if I'm Nagel, I want to see him return on that now, because I've put my hand in my back pocket and I want to go, right, guys, I'm doing my bit now. I've put my money in. It's now time for you to make sure that you're doing what I'm asking you to do. Leave him to do the job, which I'm pretty sure he will be, and go and deliver and make yourself look good out of it as well. Because, listen, better than us, down to Town have been in a situation when you haven't had much to pay in, basically, in the past. And Nagel's coming in and he's been a bit of a, knight in armour, so to speak, coming in and throwing the millions, which is fair play to him. But end of the day, like you said, you can't say something, then not follow up in the bad times, and then when stuff's not going right, you stay quiet or you make knee-jerk reactions. And it comes back again to that plan, Downsy, doesn't it? You're right, having that strategy, that blueprint of what do you want to do. Maybe you might think in my mind, 3 years I want it to get into the Premier League. But you've got to be careful how you communicate that with your fans and the media and everything else. It's how you tactfully go about it. Sometimes you might have discussions internally, but then there's also stuff that you say externally that's a little bit different. And, but would we regret saying some stuff? I don't know. It's easy to make them comments and think afterwards, oh, should I have said that? I don't know. In a way, fair play, because he's been ballsy and come out and said it, but you've also got to have the infrastructure and everything around that club to back it up. And listen, it might not be easy, and I hear the frustrations because when you're a fan, you're completely engrossed in it. And every day you just want your team to win, don't you, at 3 o'clock on a Saturday and 7:45 on a Tuesday. And I think if you did go up, Town would give it a good crack and throw a bit of money and invest as well.
Yeah.
But when you're in this level at League One, it's not easy to get out of. And I unfortunately, because of the way, I'm not saying you, Dante, but I think the way it's happened by spending big money for players that are some of the best ones in this division, like we said earlier, the expectations rise, and some people think that there's a bit of an entitlement to go straight up. That just doesn't happen in football.
What blame, though, comes to the players with this? I'm just conscious that we're approaching 9 o'clock, and I know we're going to overrun for sure, but we don't want to overrun too much. And obviously, I just want to bring up Cheesy's point. He says performance has been dire. Fans there want the team to give 100%. With Town, we're not getting that. Grant hasn't included better than has to go. How much does the blame lie with the players? Is one kind of point, and secondly, you look at the recruitment so far in this window, and the fact that his name's gone. Humphreys from Ipswich was the first man. Humphreys was the first man through the door, therefore a player that's worked with Lee Grant before. That doesn't suggest the fact that, they're backing Lee Grant in this window, they're letting him get players that he's worked with before. Doesn't suggest he's going anywhere. It certainly suggests more so that Nagel is learning in terms of sticking with a man.
You say learning, but how much more pressure he can survive on this learning experience, I do not know. I mean, yes. By the way,
what I mean by that,
I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that.
What I mean by that, sorry, Steve, though, is just that we've talked about the fact that you've gone through how many managers under Nagel so far, and then actually, it might be a case where because he's brought Grant in the summer, that actually he's going to try and back the man and stick with the man for more than a season rather than making the continuing cycle of changes. Yeah,
but it all points back to Darren Moore, who we should have sacked after 5 games, and he gave him 27 when it were never going to work. Now, I appreciate that we're in the Championship and not League One, but you've got to understand when things are working and when things are not working, but also understand why they're not working for a reason. So under Duff, the reason it didn't work is because the absolute injuries that we had. That's not necessarily happened with Grant. What I would say is, listen, Alnwick is coming, good goalkeeper. Goodman's gone back, so that's sort of the goalkeeper department now. We haven't got this absolutely stupid position where they keep saying we've got 2 number 1 goalkeepers. That should never ever be the case. You should have a number 1 and a number 2, not 2 number 1s, because it'll make them both unhappy, and that's what happened. Humphreys, good player from Wickham. Obviously, like we've just spoke about, Leo Castledine going, so that's a disappointment. Ben Wow's going isn't a disappointment, if I'm honest. I'm quite glad that he's packed his bags and gone to MK. But I don't think we'll get much more. I really don't. I think this is it. I think, Nagel's put his hand in his pocket, like Lou said. You've got to say fair play to him. I agree with you, Chris, if that was the way you were trying to point me, that how much blame does need to go on the players. A fair amount. Definitely, because they should be good enough, this squad, to be able to win fixtures that they haven't this year against the sort of opposition that we've come up against. However, the majority of it is on Grant, and he has to take responsibility. And the fact is, he doesn't really, or he doesn't seem to, because he's had. I mean, how many managers do you know that fall out with your 2 most expensive players that are both strikers in the same season, months apart? He's took Joe Taylor on in the last 3-4 games for just 4 minutes. He cost a couple of million.
Has that been sorted out now, Downsy, seeing as he's back in?
I was going to say, suggest he's back in the squad at least, which is a step up from 3 weeks ago.
But he's only given him 4 minutes. I mean, it's pathetic. We
don't know what's happened though, Downsy, as well, mate.
No, we don't know what's happened. No, we don't know what's happened. We don't know what's happened with Alfie May either.
Also, I will say, to be fair to Lee Grant, fair play. If he doesn't think he's right fit for that squad, at least he's big enough and ugly enough to take that on. This is one thing I know I've asked a question earlier. and I know Cheesy made that comment earlier, and I see a lot of things I've seen from your show that you did last night, and go check it because I enjoy watching it, is people are wanting potentially Grant to go, but what's the solution? So I'm not saying, what's your answer? What's the solution to get Huddersfield Town back in the Championship? Because at the moment, I'm hearing not a solution. I'm not hearing answers.
Gary Rowett.
Can I just pick up on this, though? Because...
Or Tony Mowbray. Or Nigel
Gary
Pearson.
Rowett, Tony Mowbray, fine. Like, good managers, capable managers for the level, might do all right. But you sack Lee Grant now, or say you sack him in 5 games' time, Garrett Rowett comes in, you end up in the playoffs and lose, you get 6 months in the next season, and you sign the playoff positions.
Yeah.
What then? It's just the same cycle of disappointment.
But you Gary Rowett and Tony Mowbray will not speak to the fan base like Lee Grant has. Gary Rowett, if I know for a fact, because I've watched enough interviews that Gary Rowett's done, if we play crap, he'll come out and say, we've played crap.
That's fine, but let's be honest, 99% of the Town fan base don't really care what's said in a press conference. They care about their team getting a result of the weekend. So if the results aren't changing, if you're still saying like 5th in the Championship, 5th in League One in 12 months' time with Gary Rowett, there'll still be the whole, well, we should be challenging for the top 2. This is a disappointment. So what I'm saying is look at the again, Bradford have been the greatest example of this in recent years. To go through the manager cycles that Town have been in recently, they've got to. And look, I'm not necessarily conveying that Lee Grant is the one to stick with. I'm just saying it might be the worth of look, it's got to end at some point. What I'm saying is that a change doesn't guarantee success. Look, we expected that when Michael Duff went.
Sorry, the reason I'm laughing is just because you just reminded me. If you said the complete opposite there, about it's got to end at some point. What about if it doesn't end and you get the Mick McCarthy going? It can. But I think, listen, like I know we want to move on, so I think we'll go to Burton this week. We've got Rotherham tomorrow in the Cup. There'll be about 3 people at the ground probably. Who cares if we win? I mean, I'd like to win, and I'm sure every club would love to get to Wembley and try and win a trophy. But I'm really not as bothered about the Rotherham game as anything. I'm more bothered about the league. I think we'll go to Burton, and we'll probably. Well, I've predicted a draw on Town Talk yesterday. I think we'll draw with Burton. The massive game is Bradford in 2 weeks, in a fortnight, and I'm telling you now, right. You'll get 2 emotions on here after that game, right? If Bradford win, you'll have Gaz there, absolutely smiling his backside off, which is fine. That's brilliant. However, there'll be such a toxicity in that stadium if we lose to Bradford. I don't know how Lee Grant comes back from that.
Can I just come in because I wanted to say something. I wanted to say something before anyway. But on that, I might be smiling, but I won't rub it in, Dowsy. I think I were really good when we beat you earlier. These lads were worse than me. I stayed quiet because I know if I'd have rubbed it in and been really, really, I don't know, what do you call it? Bragging about it. Yeah, then it'd come back and bite me. So I deliberately didn't do that because I know.
No, I didn't mean you.
Around in football. But what I will say, just on sound there, is that Lou said something else there about going quiet in bad times and being talking it up in good times. That's another thing they used to say at City. The thing is, where you're talking and I'm only an outsider looking in, there's not one thing to blame for how you lot are feeling at the moment. You can put it on the players, you can put it on the manager, you can put it on the ownership. Yeah, ownership's obviously put his money in, but there's probably other things that he can be doing as well. It's a perfect storm. There's lots of things, lots of contributors to how you're feeling right now.
Yeah. No, you're spot on.
Yeah, that's right.
When this was happening at City, though, when everything was going tits up at City, you were 17th in League 2, not 5th in League 1.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
Like for a club the size of Bradford in League 2 to be, on the brink of relegation to a National League, fair play. Then it's fine to kick off and whinge because you were a Premier League side once as well. Like you were sat arse end of League 2, not top end of League 1.
Playing devil's advocate though, maybe Huddersfield Town fans are maybe seeing what's happened to others and they want to stop it from going that way. We could be here all night and talk about it, couldn't we?
Yeah. You could.
All I want to say lastly is I didn't
So
mean you, Gaz.
let's turn to the statement from the Cowshed Loyal.
No, I didn't mean you specifically, Gaz, about rubbing it in and what, because I don't think you do that.
I know I won't do it because I know it'll come and
He
bite me.
will. He will.
No, but
It's in your backyard, Downsy. He will love it if they beat you in your own backyard.
No, he won't because he's a stand-up gent. But all I'm saying is, I'm more talking about how the Town fan base will react to a defeat against Bradford.
Cheers,
Cheers.
cheers.
All right.
Right, you, even though you're a chicken.
No, Gaz,
I'm glad it
Gaz
comes
is.
across and I'm a good guy.
Look at Gaz
Gaz is
making
sound.
friends with everyone. I love it. And he didn't even know him.
I know some other Bradford City fans who unfortunately will absolutely tear me to shreds in various WhatsApp groups if we lose to City. But
That will as well.
I just think that we're coming to a crux. And if you batter us in that game, which I know we'll preview next week, but if you batter us in that game, we won't have seen scenes at Town from a fan base like that, probably going back 20 years. Honestly, genuinely.
I just
But
don't
anyway,
see Nagel.
Can't wait to lose at Burton.
I just don't see Nagel sacking Grant. Certainly not the way that the window's going. The fact that he's letting him bring in players where he's worked with before.
If City beat us 3-0, he'll have to sack him because I don't think he'll be allowed back in club.
I don't think we can write anything off with Huddersfield Town at the moment.
No. So yeah, Burton at the weekend, and Steve. What do you reckon?
I think we'll draw. I've said I think we'll draw 1-1. Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what the lineup is for that game. Because, like I said, I don't really care about Rotherham tomorrow. Again, if we got to the final, of course, I'm going to Wembley. It's a day out in London, isn't it? But I'm sure we'll all try and get press tickets. But yeah, Burton. Yeah, I think we'll draw. So it'll be another game where it'll be difficult. They'll make it hard. It's a who's the manager? What's his name?
Gary
Bowyer, yeah. So he like Gaz has said before, he has a certain way of playing, and it's not a nice way of playing. And Lee Grant couldn't get the better of him at home, so I'm not confident of him getting the better of him away. So yeah, but yeah, please do go watch Town Talk last night, and you'll see that if you're up for an hour and a half of entertainment and depression all at the same time, then go check it out.
Do we want to touch on this Cowshed statement? We've got 5 minutes to fill apparently until Jake can get to talk about Leeds United. So, or anything else you want to talk about, Downsy?
Well, obviously the Cowshed Loyal have come out and made a statement. I agree with some of the points. I think some of the language is some of the hyperbole is interesting what they've used. Do I think it's the right time? I wouldn't have put a statement out like that now. I would have put it out when we ultimately don't get in the playoffs and we're 9th in the league at the end of the season. But yeah, the fan group has decided to put this out. It's it's the loudest part of the stadium. They're very vocal in what they think about many issues at the club. And yeah, they've decided to write this statement, and it's interesting. But
really interesting. All right, Jesus Christ.
Would I have put it out now? No. Do I agree with some of the points that are hidden within there? Yes.
I mean, look, I'll leave it on the screen for you to read yourselves because I've not reading all that drivel out.
I mean, you call it drivel, Chris, and you call it drivel, but
it just seems it just seems to be another over dramatic reaction. Like, where's the hope? Who do we put our faith in? Like,
but you call it drivel, but it's written with an emotion from a Town fan's perspective. They've just like me, I'm a very passionate supporter about my football club, as we all are about our own teams. And this is the way that they wanted to present their argument. You can agree or disagree whether that's the wrong way, but
Okay,
know,
I disagree.
it's
I disagree that it's the right way. Then I think
Well,
it's very
that's
over
fine, but
and I think I agree with you in the fact that the timing seems to be well off.
But yeah, and that's fine. You can disagree, but to call it drivel when it's somebody else's opinion or a fan group, passionate fan group's opinion, I can't get on board with that.
Gaz,
I mean, what did
Lou, your
Gavin
take on the
Lou think?
statement?
I don't know, Chris. I really don't know. It
Don't
just
sit on the
feeds
fence,
into
Gaz.
it feeds into what we've been talking about for the last whatever. I don't know how long we've been covering, but it's just going over that. We're just going to end up talking about the same stuff that we've talked about for the last however long. They feel how they feel. They're right in it. It's different when you're in it as a fan, as Downsy keeps saying, as we've all pointed out. When you're in the thick of it, yeah. But then I hadn't thought till you said, Chris, that the difference about when it was City and when it was Town. I hadn't even thought about that. You know, that we were threatened with relegation to the non-league. That's where we were at. We were looking at that at one point, and that
you literally
I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, you're at the lowest of the low as a football league side.
Chris is corralling people on his side of the argument. I love it. Gaz, don't fall for it, mate.
I look at what's been put out, and again, it's that. Again, it like we said earlier, it comes down to about expectations. There seems to be a little bit of entitlement in there as well, which I think is difficult. As a football fan, you hope and feel at certain points that you should get something, but that doesn't really usually always happen in football. But I do come back to my question, and I keep banging on about it. What is the solution? What is the solution? And it's like, I'm looking at that statement, and obviously it's very emotional from a fan's perspective because for seeing it. But it's like, don't be fooled into thinking that this will be fixed with some video diaries and marketing ploys. You must wake up and return the club to where you found it before the patience runs out completely. But what does that mean? I don't.
Yeah.
Quite vague in terms of that. You know, before Huddersfield Town had pretty much no money, and Nagel came in and, like I say, is now come in and spent a bucket load of money to try and get the club into some kind of reasonable asset. But it's okay saying this, but there's a lot of we want this and we want that, but what do you want to see from your club's hierarchy to change for fortunes? And that's where I do struggle with it a little bit. If
I said yes,
we're passionate and we're going, we want this and we'd love this to change, and that's fine. But again, give us. It's all right giving your opinion, but back it up with something substantial. Going, I want this, and I think we could potentially do this by doing this and the other. We're happy to come and see you and talk about X, Y, Z and stuff, or think of ways that can be a bit proactive and a bit constructive in it instead of just coming out with some buzzwords and questions. Ask the questions, but try and answer them yourselves a bit. Not saying, and it's difficult because they're not running the club and not going to run the club. Even though we talk about fans being, the lifeblood of a club, which they are, but at the same extent, Kevin Nagel owns that club. It's his club. It's his money. He can do what he wants to do with it as well. And I just see that sometimes fans get very irate, and very passionate, which is fine. But just come up with some answers as well.
I know we're going on, but I really need to put some context for you there, Lou, because it's not something probably that you're aware of. So there is a fans panel called the ATT panel that has been ran at the club for many years now, and it was started under Dean Oil and it has carried on under Kevin Nagel. It's called All Together Town, right? So basically, it invites different fan groups and different individuals within the wider public to go and be able to sit in a meeting with the hierarchy of the club and to be able to ask questions. Now, a lot of that time that when that meeting has happened, the questions and right questions and thorough questions have been asked by these people, and all the answers that have been given back is we either can't answer that because of obviously things are happening within the club internally, which is fine. You understand that. But then there are different statements that have come out within this meeting that then have gone on and obviously been publicised. And that's where the communication issue is, Now, what Dean Oil used to do is he used to go, right, what we'll do is at Canal Side, we'll get a pie and pea supper up. I'll discount the pints. Fans can come in. I'll sit at the front and they can give me any questions they want. I'll answer all about pies, EFL, whatever. You go back and you listen to some of the questions that Dean had over the years, and they range from everything, But and that's how he dealt with it. The problem is that this is a very different ownership and a very different way of working. We did get video diaries before where he's Kevin's PR person in Carmichael, Dave, put those questions, but the problem is he's not trusted. He's not because he's on Kevin's side, and a lot of people think that those questions are filtered down and not really asked in the right manner or the right way. That's not a trusted way of doing things and communicating. And then since then, they haven't done any of these video diaries, and therefore we don't really get any communication by the odd tweet from Kevin Nagle. And I think that's part of the problem, that this ATT panel is sort of been weakened over the years, in the last couple of years, because we don't have the direct contact with the ownership or the board necessarily. And then obviously the other ways that they've tried to do the communication are either not trusted or it feels very filtered and very sort of kind of what we've had before. And I think that's a real big issue, the communication. Obviously, you probably weren't aware about that, but that goes into some of the context.
No, it's fair, mate. Yeah, no, it's fair. I think, but again, it comes down to exactly what it's kind of full circling from everything we've been discussing, that it's also having somebody on the ground like Dean Hall used to be. It's just a different world, different society, different way of running a club. But when you got someone like Dean Hall who lives here, he's living it day by day, he's coming in the office day by day. It's very different from that ownership. So again,
Kevin's coming over for the Bradford game, and he's here normally for about 2 weeks. So they could say now, they could announce that he's going to hold a fans forum at the stadium and let fans be able to go and ask Kevin and other, if he wants Jake Edwards there or Chris Markham, who we've still not heard anything from, who's the director of football. They could easily publicise that, and I tell you what, you get hundreds of people turning up to listen to what.
Yeah, but playing devil's advocate on that, why would he though? Because
he's the ownership. He's the owner of the club. Given
the amount of abuse and stick that he gets on social media alone.
But these morons don't turn up. They never turned up with Dean Oil. They never turned up with Dean Oil. Hang on.
But Kevin Nagle doesn't know that. Kevin doesn't know that anyone that criticised Dean Hoyle ever actually turned up, does he? Like, it's also a very different world now in terms of social media, the way things are done, compared to it was in Dean Hoyle's day. So, from Kevin's perspective, you've got to see that there's an element of the town fan base and the abuse that he receives from elements of the fan base, and as I say, elements of not.
But these people are morons.
But there's a risk.
But what you're saying then is you're going right. So the minority of fans that give him ridiculous abuse and pathetic abuse and shouldn't really be involved in the club in whatsoever way. I will say that now. Abuses should never ever be given to anybody, whether it's on social media or in person. But that's denying the proper supporters who want genuine questions answered of why things have happened or what's happening or what's Kevin's thoughts on this and that. And that's denying those supporters the ability to have that connection with him, who actually want the connection with the ownership.
But then when that has happened in a virtual sense, because obviously Kevin lives on the other side of the world, well, not quite, lives in the States, like obviously when that's happened in a virtual way, because it has to, because he lives over in America, people don't trust it anyway. So, I mean, look, the only middle ground would be a ticketed way of doing it but then he'll be accused of, oh, well, he's not seeing everyone. It's limited to X amount of people, or look, he can't win is basically what I'm saying. He couldn't win whether he sat there and took it or whether he didn't really.
I think he can win if he did if he came over and did a fans forum. I think people would appreciate that connection with him. I genuinely do.
Do you have regular fans forums at all, Downsley? Because in the football fans charter that clubs are meant to have so many a year, I'm sure it is.
So,
there was this debate.
Yeah. So that's what the
debate around
ATT
City when we weren't having them. We weren't having them, and now they do one in person, and then they claim this one that they do on Radio Leeds is the second one because they're meant to have two. People think they should both be face to face. But do you have them?
So that's what the ATT meetings are, Gaz. Basically, they're not.
Right.
They're not really called fans forums. That's how I presume the club gets around doing those.
Yeah, but
they give certain fan groups the ability to meet the board or whatever. But even that's now becoming that's changing and apparently becoming something different. So yeah, it's just something that I'm quite passionate about, and I hope that not that Kevin probably listens to me anyway, but I just feel that if he did a fans forum at some point, that would go some way to, because when he's done them before in the past, he's been really well received. I have to say,
Yeah, and to be fair, you look at the interviews that we did with him in person, and they were
brilliant,
largely well received, and it was a pleasure for us to go over and to meet him. We'll leave Huddersfield Town there. Gaz, I appreciate. I think you need to drop off.
No worries. Good chat, guys.
If everyone decides to leave, mate,
Hang on, mate.
Something or what we don't.
Sorry,
know,
Jay.
but...
See you later, boys.
I'm happy to stay on as long as Jay's happy for me to comment about Leeds.
Obviously. Have you guys seen Sabozlai's mistake tonight, by the way?
I haven't. Has he also scored a screamer, though, or something?
Right, I haven't seen that, but wait until you see what Sabozlai's done tonight.
Right.
You will never, ever see a mistake as bad as this. It is... It is something that you see in Football Manager and you'd be like, what on earth has he done that for? He intercepts the ball in his own box, carries it across his 6-yard box with the Barnsley player chasing him, then tries to backheel it to his goalkeeper, misses it, and the player taps it in from 6 yards out. It's unreal. It is unreal.
Is it on Twitter?
Yeah, okay, that's mental. I've just seen it. That is actually crazy. Jesus Christ.
I've never seen anything like that.
I'm just going to try and find it now.
Mad.
Anywho, talk to me about Leeds. I've got 15 minutes.
Yeah, we'll do a quick rattle through with Leeds because, again, at the moment, so far, things. I know, obviously, the Newcastle defeat was a tough one to take in the circumstances. Off the back of that, though, bounced back with an FA Cup win that, let's be fair, it could have been quite a tricky afternoon at Pride Park, given the recent history and that little bit of rivalry that goes back a much further distance, to be fair.
Oh, my
between
God.
the two sides. Yeah, it's bad, isn't it, Steve?
Oh, my God. I'm that bad. Jesus, what are you doing?
Yeah, a 3-1 win in the end and coming from behind as well to get the result. A little bit of character shown in that as well.
Yeah, it definitely had the makings of a bit of a banana skin. And bear in mind, only this season we'd gone out in the League Cup to a Sheffield Wednesday team that were on minus 15 points at the time or whatever they were on, and they had no players. And,
kids.
Yeah, they played the kids, and we played a second-string side, but still a team that should have won, and we didn't turn up at all. So, and then we missed a penalty, and then we went behind against the run of play, and yeah, so it definitely had the hallmarks of a bit of a banana skin, but we actually played really well. I didn't watch the game live at the time, but I've watched it all back since, and we played some good stuff, given the fact that we were playing a bit of a new system. A 3-4-1-2 kind of showed up. We were pretty aggressive and pretty attacking. It's a version of the 3-5-2 which we've been playing, but Perot was playing a bit more advanced in the 10. We had a lot of makeshift players in the system, the likes of Jack Harrison coming in and getting game time, and Metro coming back from injury. Perot's barely kicked a ball this season. He obviously started the game. Bornau, who's been playing as of late, but still catching up on game time. So there were a lot within the system that was different, and we got through championship opposition. A bit of a canter in the end, really. It had potential for banana skin, but it didn't really work out that way, really. So yeah, all good.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those. I mean, look, we'll touch on the FA Cup fourth round draw. Obviously, it's another championship side away from home.
Yeah,
for Leeds away at Birmingham City. That's the draw in full. I mean,
first, isn't it?
say again.
It's another crap draw, isn't it? Really, I mean,
well, I was about to go through and pick out and think actually he's not too bad to be fair. I've certainly seen worse. But Jay, just on that kind of fourth round tie, away obviously a Birmingham City side that have got aspirations of making the Championship playoffs themselves if they can get their act together maybe in this window.
Yeah, I mean it's a really winnable game. I'll say that it's a bit like the Derby game, but Birmingham are probably slightly better than Derby. It's a run-of-the-mill Championship opposition. Whether it's at home or away, we should hope to go there and win that. And obviously you prefer to have it at home, but to be honest with you, these kind of Championship games are exactly what I want us to have in the cup run. I don't want us to play another Premier League team, really. I want us to kind of get as far as possible playing the lower opposition as possible. And it also doesn't feel like a ruin your season Macclesfield kind of tie where, like, if you did lose with a second string team, people are throwing question marks up. So it's a good one for me, and I'm happy with it. I want to see us trying to keep on winning games, and we showed the level difference between us and a standard Championship team in Derby. I think we can do the same again, and for me, like I say, the longer we can take it, it breeds confidence. It's a good thing. Yesterday we saw some performances from players also that we should no longer have at the club, really, and that's another opportunity to get them in the window. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, we will come back to this. I just want to kind of touch on this cup draw because you know what, I just don't think it's too bad of a draw. So I think for me, there's a couple of obvious, what you class as your obvious telly games. Obviously, Macclesfield at home to Brentford. Obviously, I think Burton at home to West Ham. To be honest, I'd make Burton bloody favourites for that one, the way that West Ham are at the moment.
Grimsby at home to Wolves.
Yeah, Grimsby in the same place to Grimsby versus Wolves. There's a chance for Andy Cook to get some goals against Wolves, to be fair. Yeah. So I think there's a couple of ties in there that aren't too bad, to be fair. There's one or two you look at and think, if it was the other way round, it would probably be a telly game. For example, Burnley v Mansfield. If that was at Field Mill, you'd back that to be on the telly as well. I mean, yeah, down to what do you kind of think? I mean, I know you were a bit meh about it. I don't think it's that bad.
Just quickly say, like Villa Newcastle as well. Like that's quite a big tie to remove one of them. So it makes an interesting rest of the draws to come. Because like you look at them really, and you outside of Man City and then Liverpool and obviously Arsenal, like you've actually got a decent chance of progressing. So I quite like it.
No, I give it that. I think you look at some of the ties, so like Stoke, Fulham. That could be interesting. How much Fulham going to take it seriously? I agree, Chris. I think Burton have got a great chance to beat West Ham. Let's be honest, and I think most of the country will be rooting for Burton on that one. Hull Chelsea's an interesting one with the way that Hull are going in the Championship as well.
What are the chances? Sorry, on that. What are the chances? Liam Rosenior going back to his old club in Hull City.
Yeah, it's mad. This is why I love the FA Cup, because it does bring up stories. And yeah, it's not as. But now I'm thinking about it, it's not as bad as what I thought. And do you know what? I'd really like somebody from a neutral point of view, because obviously Town aren't in it anymore. But I'd love not the big clubs to get through. I'd love it if it so. Let's say the final, right? If the final was, I don't know, Mansfield v Grimsby, right? I know it's never going to happen. I know it's never.
I'll be honest.
FA Cup purist, how good would it be to see Mansfield v? I know not Grimsby Field, but Mansfield v Burton. How good would that be as an FA Cup final?
I'll be honest. When you said not the big teams in the final, I thought you were going to say,
Fulham versus Leeds
final or something.
Yeah. I wouldn't want Leeds to be there, but do you know what I mean? I genuinely think, like for instance, like Brighton could beat Liverpool. The way Liverpool are playing. Yeah, I'd like it not to be Arsenal, Liverpool, Man City, Chelsea, or obviously now not Man United. I just want it to be somebody else. Like
another tricky tie there is Mansfield away at Burnley. Mansfield. Like put up a real performance against Sheffield United. They were 4-1 up in that game, and they'll fancy the chances against Burnley. I know Burnley made small, quick, short work of
Millwall. How good were the scenes at Macclesfield? To me, that is what the FA Cup is all about.
Class, and we're the only league in the world that can do that. Really, like you don't see the other cups I mean, I remember one a few years ago, Barcelona lost to a 4th division team, and it was literally like the only time it had happened in Spanish history. Like, it happened regularly within the English pyramid, didn't it? So maybe not the gap of Macclesfield and Palace, but it happens a lot that teams are capable of bridging that gap.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, on the FA Cup, Jay, for Leeds as a side that are in a good position in terms of staying up, but obviously not going to get near, challenging for higher echelons like the European places or anything. Where does the FA Cup rank actually for Leeds fans? Because I'd say it's one of those that if it was tighter, I would appreciate Leeds fans would be like, look, safety's priority, sack off the FA Cup. But because you are in a reasonably comfortable position, 8 points clear at the moment in the Premier League, surely there's a reason there to put a bit more importance on the FA Cup and try and get some silverware. And look, if you were to be able to go and win it, that actually would end up potentially being a route into Europe.
You make a really, really great point. I mean, I think obviously the priority still will always be the eye on the safety, and until we're a little bit more safe, it probably won't take the priority that maybe some people feel it should, or even the purists would feel like it should. For me, Premiership survival is the be all and end all, but I think that we realistically need 4 wins, 12 points, whether that's made up of maybe 3 wins and 3 draws. I think 12 points roughly is going to do us, unless West Ham have a real upturn in form. 12 points would put us on 34. I think it's going to be in and around 34, 35. So we should be able to do that. Now, if we get through the next game against Birmingham, by that point, we'll have a good idea maybe of just how safe we are. And then we could probably take the priority a little bit more. We move the priority of the FA Cup up a little bit, and we can start the first team. And the thing is, we've seen outside of the Arsenal game this season, we've shown that we're very competitive against any of the good sides. We're capable of causing us upset of a zone. Like, I wouldn't be surprised about beating Manchester City at home, as an example, in the FA Cup. That wouldn't surprise me at all. So if we're capable of getting through games like that, then why wouldn't we think about potentially going on and winning that in a cup format? Like,
if you won the FA Cup, I'd have to not be on here for 6 months at least, I think.
But I can't even tell you how amazing that would be. Like, joking aside, I know obviously the Leeds Huddersfield hatred and all the rest of it, but in terms of, me and Brownie talk about it off air from time to time, like winning a cup in our lifetime would be like, we've obviously won the championship a couple of times and that was amazing, but it's different to winning the top flight trophy, whether that be in a European trophy, League Cup, FA Cup, whatever.
I know how you feel, mate. As a man that's seen us lift the Checker Trade Trophy at Wembley, I know. I've
seen what I. There's only one thing I now need to see in football, and that's England win a World Cup, really. Because I just know that Town aren't going to win a top flight trophy, as you said, Jay. Leeds definitely have the ability with the way the draw's working out, and I think you will have to obviously probably go beat a big team at some point, because it's inevitable that you're going to be drawn against one like an Arsenal or a City. But it does seem quite, like I say, an interesting draw. And once a few seasons ago, where they were like, was it like in the quarterfinals, there were like 4 championship teams or something?
Yeah, it happens. It does happen.
You look back, haven't you? Like the Portsmouth Cardiff final, when Cardiff won the championship.
Millwall got to the final.
Yeah, the Man United Millwall final. Millwall were in the championship at the time as well. And look, on that run, if you can get past Birmingham, and if you do get, a big side at home, I think it's at the 5th round that, as much as I hate the fact it isn't a Saturday game, but isn't it the 5th round that they end up putting on like a midweeker? So if you get that at Elland Road under the lights,
I mean, look, no team really fears me. I mean, we got pumped by Arsenal at their place, but like I've watched every game that we've played. We've played every team now. Come this point of the season, like there isn't that much fear factor from anybody really. We lost by a goal to Man City. We lost by a goal to Spurs. We lost by a goal to Villa. These are the other teams that you would maybe look at ordinarily and think, we drew with Manchester United. We beat Chelsea. We're okay. We're capable. I'd worry if we played Arsenal away. They are the team to beat, are they? But even they've shown, weaknesses, and they've shown negatives over more recent weeks. So, and we're a different team now anyway. So we can be competitive, and on any given day, I believe that we can beat anybody, especially at home. I mean, if we were to get draws at home, I'd be fairly confident. Truthfully, I would, especially if he puts a full strength team out. So, we'll just have to wait and see. I'm not getting ahead of ourselves because we could go to Birmingham, lose at St Andrews, and we're all looking a bit dumb. So, it's game at a time, and the next Premier League game right now is the key.
Let's
and you know what?
Sorry, Steve, go on.
I was just going to say, my opinion on I've said it on here, but I've also said it now. WhatsApp chat. I just think that you pretty much, to me, I'd be very confident if I were you were staying up, because I just don't see West Ham getting the points that they need. Yes, Wolves have picked up, but I don't think that they'll get the points, and obviously, Burnley don't win that many games anyway. It's all very tight, isn't it, with Burnley in terms of games, but they probably draw too many, or if they don't draw it, they tend to lose. So I think I agree. 34 points. I think you get 4 wins, and I can see you doing that. To be honest,
I think that the reality is that it's not the worry around what West Ham are going to do so much. It's the worry about Leeds more than anything for Leeds fans. Like, we've played really well over the last 8 games, and we went 7 unbeaten. That's pretty unprecedented for a team in our position in the Premier League to not win. To not lose in 7 games. And unfortunately, we didn't win as many of them games as what we probably deserve to, which has still left us with something that really we have to show. Like, if we'd have won another 2 of them games out of the 5 that we drew during that 7, I'd be saying I agree with you completely, down to we'd be sat on 26. We'd probably need another 8 points. We're going to get them at home. We're crushed it. But with the position that we're in, before that run of 7, we lost 6 out of 7. If we lose 6 in a row now, everybody's going to be, flapping. Like, there's going to be a big flap.
I don't think you'll do that. I think you also have to remember that there's going to be sides in that 15th to sort of like 10th position that are not going to be. They'll probably, as the season goes on, they'll know that they're not going to get a European place, and also that they're going to be safe, aren't they? So they're really the closer you get to the end of the season, when you come up against, I don't know, a Bournemouth or a Fulham or whoever, the more chance you have got of winning those games, to be absolutely honest, because there won't be a lot of them players will be thinking about their holidays in the beach or even the World Cup.
No, you're right. I think the big thing that we need to remember as Leeds fans, during this run that we had in December and we went undefeated and whatnot, since Man City to playing Newcastle, we've played 9 of the top 10. Yeah. So the rest of the season, we've actually got a lot of really favourable home games. So we play Fulham at home at the weekend. We've still got Burnley to come at home. We've still got Wolves to come at home. We've still got, who else have we got? We've got a lot. No, but we've played Bournemouth at home already. We drew 2-2 with them. But we've got a lot. We beat West Ham. We've got a lot of the bottom half anyway to come at home. Yeah. Sunderland are still to come at home, who I think they're so out of place. I really do. Every time I watch them, I think you're just not that good. But yeah, so the fixtures that we've got, especially at home, are really favourable. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting second half of the season for sure.
Let's just touch on the transfer window very quickly before we finish up. The one kind of rumour that I heard today was Danilo Durkee from Union Berlin, 27-year-old Dutch centre-half. And I heard Kevin Hatchard as well on, I think it was Sky Sports News earlier on today, obviously European kind of football expert, and he was wax lyrical about him, to be fair. Says that he's used to playing a back 3 as he does for Union Berlin, and would be, in his words, a no-brainer for Leeds. And as somebody that has signed him many a time on Football Manager, I agree.
Yeah, he's a very...
What I've seen him in the Bundesliga as well over the last few years, he's a very, very good player.
Yeah, he is a very good player. It sounds as if, as well, that we've stolen a bit of a march on Villa, which is interesting. Whether we're offering him, guaranteed starting place and they're not, or maybe we're just prepared to throw the money at it, given the fact that we've got the reassurance that we should be in the league next season. A centre-back, I think, is really vital. Pascal usually spends a fair chunk of the season out, and he hasn't had an injury yet this season. Bornau's a bit of an injury concern. in himself, yeah. And we've developed from playing 2 at the back to playing 3 at the back, so we need another centre back every week. So another centre back makes a lot of sense. He's a perfect prime age. He's built up the experience, so he can come in and hopefully hit the ground running. And like I said, he's good.
He's a goal threat as well. He's got 1 in 4 record this season from centre half, and aerially is excellent. So
it's an exciting one, mate.
Well, yeah, I think. What's the rumoured fee? Because I've not seen that much.
I've heard, this is a little bit throwaway, but I've heard between 15 and 20 million. That's what I've read online. But
that is really a no-brainer. That's bugger all in this day and age for a centre half of his quality and his ability.
I would like to see us sign a striker as well. I would like to see us sign a centre forward. The Pirro struggled this season in the way that many thought that he might because of his physical attributes. He's just not capable, especially in our system.
Sure, there's championship clubs that are certainly weighing up a move for someone like Joel Pirro, who is going to get goals at championship level.
The problem with Joel Pirro is, and I think we had this with Cameron Archer a year ago, because we were on the verge of signing Cameron Archer. Southampton wanted too much, and we decided, we'll stick with what we've got. You go and sign Joel Pirro now if you're Ipswich, and in 6 months' time, it might not be good enough for you.
Yeah.
When you're in the Premier League again, and then you're having to reinvest all over again. And I think we had that with Cameron Archer. We were kind of like, it's not worth 15 million, given the fact that in 6 months it's going to be redundant for us. So
you'd almost, I guess, need a Middlesbrough, someone that might make the playoffs, not necessarily go up, but next season he could fire you to an automatic spot rather than a side that's going to go up automatically this season, probably.
There were big rumours.
Yes.
Yeah, no, you're right. There were big rumours for PSV in the summer as well, and it sounded as if we kind of curbed it and said, no, he's not going. He started, obviously, the Everton game, and since then, I don't think he started a league game. No, he played away at Arsenal when we had no Calvert-Lewin and Metcha weren't fit yet, and then he's not played again since. So, it would make sense that he makes his way out, which would then leave a space open for somebody to come in that can actually make a significant difference within the system. At the minute, it's very much we've got Calvert-Lewin, we've got Metcha that can do the role, and then we throw on Joe Pirro if we're really desperate. That's kind of how it goes. Okafor can play up front as well, and he doesn't do it as well as the other two, but he's still a better option than Pirro. So I think that'd be the other move that I would look to probably make, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's still with us come the end of the window either, from what I've heard.
Do you think you'll get 15 million for him?
Well, we paid 15 million for him. Some Leeds fans are absolutely off the trolley, think that we should be getting 25, 30 million for him. It's not going to be anywhere near that. It'll be around
15. I don't think you'll get. I
think you get your money back.
I think we would, down to just simply because he's such a predator at championship level. Finding anybody that's capable.
On his contract.
He's only used a year, so he's got another 4 years.
All right, fair enough. If he only had a year left, you know what I mean?
Did we sign Joe Pirro season one? No, he's been with us 2 years actually, and I'm pretty sure he signed a 5-year deal, so he's probably got 3 years left actually. Just correcting myself now. But given the fact that you can almost guarantee 20 goals from Joe Pirro in the Championship and at the Eredivisie level as well, and I do think if you play the system around him right, I think he could be a real threat. I just think that he would look better. It's a funny one. He would look better in a much better side than us.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
You can get him into the positions. You can forsake a creative spark within the midfield that's then going to get him the goals. Because if you put him in and around the box, he'll score you goals, and it doesn't matter what level that's at. The goal doesn't change. It's the physical stuff away from that we need, that Calvert-Lewin brings, that you don't get from him. So I think we'd get the money back, 15 to 20 million. But yeah, we won't. I don't think we'd be making any profit on it, which kind of then makes us struggle to sell him, because PSR wise, it don't make sense, does it? So,
well, I don't think you'll get. I think you won't find many championship clubs being able to physically, financially throw 15 million at one lad.
Yeah. I think you'd be surprised, mate. Nowadays, Christ, the amount of money.
I don't see Steve Gibson stacking up 15 million for
no, maybe not necessarily Steve Gibson, but there's certainly clubs out there with deep pockets. Money in the Championship is ridiculous.
You might get a Birmingham or a Wrexham that just throw daft money at it. But
Ipswich, Ipswich will be the one. A bit just because of their position. If he's going to go to the Championship, I think he'll end up at Ipswich.
Yeah,
that's fair. Any other business? Any other little tattle or rumours on the kind of on the rumour mill amongst Leeds fans in terms of either ins or outs, or is it all pretty quiet apart from those that we discussed?
The only other kind of whisper has been Jack Harrison to Valencia, which is hilarious because they're thinking about signing him to replace Laji Ramazani, who's also on loan from us, which is just so funny. They're looking at signing Jack Harrison to replace Laji Ramazani, who's not playing, who's been injured, who's not good enough. We said that any Leeds fan with half a brain said that he wouldn't be able to hack the level, and he can't. But Jack Harrison.
Jack Harrison.
I don't even know if you'd get 5 million for Jack Harrison, if I'm honest. I can't believe, and I did a video on this earlier, I have not seen such a regression from a Premier League footballer in my whole time watching football. I cannot believe how much he's dropped off in 2 seasons at Everton. Now, when he was at Leeds before under Bielsa, he was a real workhorse. He would get to the byline a lot. He was hot and cold. His crosses would be a little bit here, there, and everywhere, but he played every week. He was almost undroppable. He was such a good system-based player that Bielsa loved him. I've seen a bit of him on and off, and I know Everton fans didn't like him, but he played pretty much solid for 2 seasons for Everton as well under different managers. He started the game at Sheffield Wednesday away and Derby away, and he has looked no better than a League One footballer. And I'm being deadly serious. He wouldn't look out of place dropping into your side down. I'm being deadly. I cannot believe how much he's regressed from a steady Premier League player to not. He was the worst player on the pitch.
I don't know whether to take that as a backhanded compliment or not, to be honest. But
it's just a negative towards Jack Harrison. It's not anything really. He's just saying that he won't get place in League One.
I'll take him. We need a winger, so I'll take him if he's up for dropping to that level.
He's on 70 grand a week.
Yeah, we can't pay that. If he wants to, if he wants 10% of that,
he needs to rediscover himself for sure. And
I tell you what, he'd work at somebody like a Burnley, and chuck him back in the Championship with Burnley going down. You get Scott Parker, who loves wingers anyway.
Yeah,
you just tell him to get to the byline. You don't give him any other. I think sometimes players like him, you just need to keep it simple. All we want you to do is run down the line and cross it into the box.
Yeah. No, you're right, and that's pretty much what he's done 2 seasons solid at Everton. And I just think he's maybe lost the rest of his game. Like it is a madness, honestly. The story of Jack Harrison needs some proper research.
This has got released at the end of his contract. Miscellaneous Jesse Lingard has moved to South Korea, written all over it.
He'll go back to the MLS. He will go back to the MLS 100% because he's not going to get what he wants over here.
No. Finally, then, Fulham at the weekend. Thoughts ahead of this one, then? Obviously, with it being back at Elland Road, I'm guessing you'll be fairly confident.
Yeah, I think Fulham are there to be got at. I think we should have really beaten them against at their place. They were awful that day, and we ended up scoring a 94th minute own goal to lose 1-0. So this will be. I think this is a really big game for us. We're on the back of the Newcastle result. Even though we've had a good run, we've not won loads of games, and this is at home against a team that's in and around our section of the table. I'd love us to go and just have a nice, comfortable afternoon at home, get the points on the board, and just kind of put West Ham back in their box. Because for whatever reason, West Ham have kind of seen a chink, if you like, from the Newcastle away game. I personally saw it as a positive. Like, there was still so much to be positive about that game, especially once I've kind of got over the immediate emotional kind of turmoil of it. Like, the fact is we went war and death with them at their place, under the lights, and we gave everybody a great spectacle. And that is what ultimately football is all about. It's about entertaining. It's about, being in great games. And when we get to the end of the season and hopefully we've stayed up, we'll all look back at that game and think, what a game it was. So... yeah,
I mean, what is war and death different to war and peace? But I think the only thing I'd say is it all queues up for Harry Wilson scoring a hat-trick, doesn't it? I think tell the story of Harry Wilson and
the fun that he's in on there. He's at
you know.
contract at the end of the season as well.
I mean, Harry Wilson was basically in the door. And Fulham pissed us around on deadline day, went from 7.5 million to 10 million, to which we said, yeah, we'll pay it. We were prepared to pay 10 million for Harry Wilson. When bear in mind, at the time, he was being seen as surplus to requirements at Fulham. And then with like 4 or 5 hours to go, they basically pulled the plug completely, which then left us without this attacker. Harry Wilson then started the next game, scored, and he's been undroppable since. And not only has he been undroppable since, he's literally had this glow up to the point where he'll be able to leave on a free transfer at the end of the season.
Yeah.
And he's almost got his pick of the clubs.
They were talking about him on Sky Sports News earlier as a man who could be looking at clubs playing the Champions League next season.
100%. He's having that kind of season, mate.
Yeah, 11 goals so far for both club and country. That's including a hat-trick for Wales. But yeah, he's having a remarkable season so far.
And the crazy thing is, and we'll finish on this, pretty much every single one of us, me included, said he wouldn't make that much of a difference. We all said that. Me and Brownie both said he's better than what we've got and he would have been an upgrade in quality. But all of us sat here and said, he's not really going to be that much of a game changer. We did. Downsy, you said it as well. You said it weren't that we didn't miss that much of a target. You know, it's only Harry Wilson. And everybody would have been right to say that because we've not seen this version of Harry Wilson in previous seasons. He's a solid Premier League player, but this season he's elevated himself. And fair play to the lad. Like, technically, he's got a wonderful left foot, but he's been able to find pockets and positions, and he's been a game changer. I mean, he's kept out of trouble with this season. So
I want to clarify. I said that if I to the Europa League and also win you the FA Cup. That's what I did say.
You did not.
I don't remember that.
You did not, Downsy. I'm pretty sure. I'd love us to go back and have a look, and maybe I will just for the sake of it.
I think I was the first. To be fair, I think I was the first one when the rumor happened. I was like, it's Harry Wilson. He's not going to make a difference to you. So I'm
pretty sure that's exactly what you said.
Yeah, and then everybody then agreed with me.
No, we did. We did. Me and Brownie both said we were disappointed that it didn't go through because he would have been an improvement, and he would have been an improvement on what we had.
I'm not sure that I would have agreed in that case. Because if Downsy said that, it's not like me to agree with Downsy. So
no. Let's be honest, Chris.
I think I said that he'd have been an absolute belter, and he's gonna have a great season ahead of him. But you know,
there's two things I've been right about this season, and West Ham was being one of them, and Harry Wilson potentially would have been the other, but he's had too much of a good season.
Yeah. Anywho.
And on this note, we will wrap it up there. Just going to quickly say a good evening to the Sporting Journey. We're off now, but thanks for joining us anyway. We've been on for almost 2 hours and 10 minutes in the grand scheme of things, talking all things Bradford and Huddersfield before Jay joined us to talk about Leeds as well. Big thank you as well to Dean. This is a great listen. Thank you very much. I'm not going to go into Ian Draco's comment about what do we think of Xabi Alonso's dismissal because that's a whole new conversation that we'll get into another time, I'm sure. Certainly if he turns up at Ellen Road instead.
Did we mention TERRIERS at the start of the show?
We have mentioned TERRIERS, yes. Okay, but actually, I'll just touch on that. Obviously, we touched on it with Gaz and with Jamie Rayner. Obviously, kind of getting their take on it, but obviously for you two, you know, TERRIERS, the man that kind of one of, as I said earlier on at the start of the show, one of few men that unites the clubs in our region in terms of Bradford, Leeds, and Huddersfield.
Yeah, I mean, I'll let Jay go first because obviously he was an instrumental player at Leeds, you know, and then I can talk a bit about what he did at Town as in his coaching capacity, let's say.
Yeah, I'll make it quick because it's from a generation way gone by for me. But obviously, he was probably one of the more unheralded kind of names, you know, in and amongst all of the other Leeds United heroes. And unless it's kind of directed, he probably doesn't get brought up in the same light, which is a bit of a shame at times, really. But he's still a massive Leeds legend. And it's a sad passing. And it's funny because we're like with Gabby still being so in the spotlight, he still gets widely that's what I'm looking for. Widely recognised. His name is still kind of in the ether. It's still there, and rightly so. I mean, Gabby Logan for me is literally just A class. Like she's just class. And very, very sad, and it is nice because he is one that actually unites all three of us, right? Like he unites City as well. It's nice. It's nice to have that. Rivalries aside, it's nice that he's kind of been there in our folklore as somebody that kind of connects West Yorkshire. So,
and there won't be many of those, Steve.
No, there won't be many. If any others, I tried to think of many others. I mean, obviously Peter Jackson,
Adam Clayton.
Well, Adam Clayton. I mean, I don't think Adam Clayton's heights at any of our clubs will go anywhere near what TERRIERS means to the fan bases. But yeah, you make a fair point, yeah. I think from a Town point of view, listen, he saved the club with Peter Jackson in 1997 with a great escape. I mean, just please go read about that season. That season is unbelievable what those two gentlemen did at our football club. And then he came back in 2004 along with Peter Jackson, who literally saved the football club. I cannot underestimate that enough. You know, we were down, we were out, we nearly went out of business. There would have been no Huddersfield Town without the supporters, without, you know, Peter Jackson and TERRIERS bringing us up. He only had 8 players at the start of that season. He had to scrimp, borrow. They had to go out and just try and get anybody to play for my football club in 2003-04. So for me, TERRIERS, although I wasn't a supporter at the time that he, you know, was involved in Town, I think he has a big place in many Town fans' hearts for what he did and for what Peter Jackson did, obviously, as well. And I know that, you know, condolences to his whole family and his friends. And I just think, yeah, what a man. And I'm really pleased that, you know, and hope that Town and Bradford can really do him justice in 2 weeks and put on a bit of a, you know, memory for him and let both sets of supporters say thanks. Because obviously I know that you spoke about it earlier, but, you know, he was involved, obviously, at Bradford City in one of the most terrible times in British football history as well, and he helped save people that day. So that needs to go. That's beyond football for me, and that needs to be recognised as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We will end it then on that kind of poignant note. Very big thank you to everyone that's joined us on the comments over the course of the evening as well. If you've joined us a little bit later on, you can go back and watch it from the start on YouTube as well. We've got about an hour's worth of chat on Bradford City at the start with covering Andy Cook's departure from the club. We also heard from Jamie Rayner from BBC Radio Leeds as well, who joined us. We then went on to talk about Huddersfield Town and the situation over at Canalside, and then we rounded up with Leeds United. So we've got different sections you can skip through as well. Check us out on social media. We're out on Facebook and on X as well. Just search for the West Yorkshire Football Show. But from myself and from Jay and Downsy, big thank you for joining us. Take care.